everybody, and welcome to Pix 11, your local election headquarters. I'm Dan Manarino, and the polls are minutes away from closing in New Jersey. Voters in the Garden State choosing their next governor right now. The candidates, Democrat Mikey Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli. Now, a big voter turnout was expected today. Early voting numbers show more than 740,000 people actually cast their ballots ahead of Election Day. Right now, you can log on to Pix11.com or Pix11 Plus as we kick off our election night coverage. And then you can join me, Corey Chambers, and Shirley Chan for a special edition of the 10 o'clock news, followed by Pix on Politics at 11 p.m. For now, I'm Dan Manarino. I'll see you on Pix 11.
Thomas is wrapped up in flimsy packages and corruption.
He's a socialist on the Democratic line. I'm a Democrat on an independent line.
In our New York, the power belongs to the people.
I have one job and one job only that I see, and that is to become the next mayor.
We have seen that this is a platform that is incredibly popular with New Yorkers because it focuses on that affordability.
He said our New York.
It's the insiders.
He said our New York before.
And this hate-mongering and division.
I don't like
The
him.
sole candidate running.
Ooh, I want to burn him.
This city.
Mamdani is the existential threat.
Let the people vote.
Let New Yorkers make the decision.
This is the most important election of my lifetime. This is going to be.
Oh, I got 3 people watching already.
Well, if you're interested in living in
Who's
a city
watching?
where you don't lock up toothpaste, but lock up criminals,
We don't
you
lock
can vote
up
for Curtis Lee.
toothpaste. It's not on any other channel.
He said, you living in a city,
Welcome to New
you
York
want to live
One
in a
special
city
coverage
with
Shush,
of
shush.
election night in New York City.
lock up
Hush.
toothpaste.
We are seeing massive turnout in the race for mayor. This election saw record high numbers during early voting, and the latest check-in from the city's Board of Election reports almost 1.75 million New Yorkers have already cast their ballots. It is the highest turnout for a mayoral election in decades. And it's not too late to get involved. You can still vote as long as you're in line by 9 p.m. If you do vote,
Yeah,
you will
I
be
would've
helping to choose the
fucking had you
111th
voted. You don't
I ain't
mayor
gonna waste
of
my
the city.
time.
What has become
Why?
one of the
You ain't
most
gonna
unpredictable
win.
and closely
Let's
watched
see why
elections
we
in
need
recent
to have
memory,
our vote.
drawing interest from across the country
ain't got
and
our
around
vote.
the
Can you
world.
check the other
His
channels?
re-election campaign at the end of September, Mayor Eric Adams endorsed former Governor Andrew
Can you
Cuomo
check the other
and went
channels?
down to a three-way race
No,
against
I wanna watch
Republican
my
nominee
show.
Curtis
No,
Lee.
check 2 to 11. Check 2 to 11 just to see.
Whoever wins tonight will inherit a city at a crossroads where the severe housing shortage and the soaring cost of living have dominated the campaign. And it is not just the race for mayor. We're also watching city council contests. We've got a race for district attorney here in Manhattan and key ballot measures, some of which could change how housing gets built in the city for decades to come. We've got team coverage stretching across the 5 boroughs this evening, and we'll bring you analysis, some special guests,
Can you
as
go
well
check
as
for
results
me?
and
Come
on,
speeches.
You're yelling in the video.
There's
I'm
nothing
joined by
on.
Go check.
Courtney Gross. We've got Ayanna Henry here as well. And Bobby Kuza is over.
Oh, now you killed the light here.
So, let me ask you,
I don't want to light.
what will you be watching for tonight?
Shush, it's on video.
Watching to see the early numbers that we see first at 9 o'clock.
Disgusting.
So we expect those to be
Oh, now the light is killing
through
this.
the 9 days of early voting. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, 700,000 people voted early. How they voted could be decisive. And I also want to see the moves at the different campaign parties throughout the night. Oftentimes campaigns have, some exit poll data, so they may have a better sense of where things stand. And so it'll be interesting to see if folks are celebrating early or if it's a quieter, more somber mood at some of these campaigns.
And what will you be watching for?
I know we're all so focused on the
That
mayor's
is
race, and
mine.
of course we're very excited to get those returns in too, but I'm very interested to see what happens with these housing
Check
ballot
on.
measures. We know that 3 of them have been really highly contentious, hot topics, really put the Adams administration against the city council. They would fast track a lot of affordable housing construction in the city, including in 12 districts that really don't produce a lot of housing. And like I said, they're highly controversial. The questions were written, if you voted, if you went and cast your ballot, we hope you still do, you still have time to do that. They're written somewhat pro. They seem like they would encourage people to vote for them. So even though some people may not have paid attention to these questions, I have a feeling, we'll see if they end up passing, but I feel like the questions were pretty pro.
Okay, thank you both. Let's go out now to downtown Brooklyn, where our Bernadette Hogan is standing by at Zoran Mamdani's election night party. Bernadette, what is the mood like there at the Brooklyn Paramount?
until about 9 o'clock, I'm told. And this venue fits about 3,000 people, but between members of the press, as well as those invites, when it comes to staff members, as well as elected officials, it'll probably hit around that number. But I want to talk to you and talk to a guest, Dora Peckish, who is Zoran Mamdani's campaign spokeswoman. She's someone that I see probably every day, and I harass every single day to figure out what he's going to be doing. And I wanted to ask you, Dora, what exactly has been the game
Dora,
plan over the
Mamdani's
past 24
spokeswoman.
hours? You know, when you're looking at these early voting turnout figures, do you think it goes towards Mamdani?
Yes, absolutely. We're very, very encouraged by the numbers that we're seeing. We're now on track to get over 2 million total votes, which would be a historic number for, mayoral elections in the 21st century. Actually, since the start of early vote, our campaign has knocked on over 500,000 doors. As a total throughout the election, we've knocked on over 3 million doors. So we're really seeing our ground game pick up, especially during early vote, and even today, canvassers out knocking doors still right now. And in the primary, we saw that the turnout helped Mamdani, and so we're really encouraged by what we're seeing today, and we're feeling very excited. And take me through the past 24 hours, right? I've seen Zoran Mamdani out at the clubs, at a gay bar. He has been knocking. He's been out in the streets. I mean, number one, does the man sleep? But number two, has that been also part of maybe this last minute push to try to make sure that you guys don't wake up the same way that the Andrew Cuomo staff and Andrew Cuomo himself did after the June primary? Yes, absolutely. We want to absolutely run through the tape. This past weekend, we went to 6 different nightclubs in Brooklyn one night, and then we had Mamdani in church the next morning speaking to voters. He spoke to marathon runners in Greenpoint, and then the next morning at sunrise, we walked from the Brooklyn Bridge to City Hall to kind of symbolize this ushering in of a new day and a new dawn in City Hall. And really what this movement is it's a culmination of a year of work. 1 year ago, under 1% in the polls, and now on the precipice of winning this election. We're feeling very, very good tonight.
And quickly, if he becomes mayor, what are you hoping to bring into City Hall? Just from what you've seen with him, you spend every day with him in the campaign. What would you like to take forward?
Yeah, I think we're really looking to bring a city government that for once actually delivers services for working people and believes in the dignity
He went to the gay bars, he went everywhere.
In stark contrast to what we've seen with Eric Adams, where
He went to all the
wakes up
bars.
every day and says how engaging pay to play for my inner circle. Whereas Zoran's going to wake up every single day and fight for New Yorkers and working people.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Dora. So, Errol, again, talking to Zoran Mamdani's
spokeswoman for him,
who's out communicating with him every single day. And now we're just going to wait until the polls close. Again, we'll start to see behind the scenes fill up, and we'll get back to you shortly.
All right. Thanks very much, Bernadette. I want to check in now with our Kelly Mena. She is in Midtown monitoring Andrew Cuomo's election night party.
fucking hate him too.
Hi, Errol. Well, people still haven't started coming in, but there are top campaign staffers here. We're expected this party to really kick off around the 8 p.m. hour. I'm joined now by one of his unofficial senior advisors, Melissa DeRosa. How are you feeling about this campaign? Going into today, it feels like a final pitch. Tell us about the last 24 hours for the former governor.
We feel incredibly energized and encouraged by what we've seen on the ground. People are voting. That is a good thing. And they are voting in record numbers. And I think that the governor's message of public safety, quality of life, how we can actually tackle the affordability crisis in combination with, I think, exposing a lot of what Zoran Mamdani has said for not being feasible, while they could be good sound bites on TikTok, I think has really come across in addition to people's real life concerns about experience and what level of experience you need to lead the second most important government in the country.
And for the governor, he's been trying to appeal to Republicans different than maybe some other candidates in the race. He's looking for both sides to support him. Tell us about that strategy and how you think that's faring out for tonight.
It's actually incredible when you think about it, and I discussed this earlier with some campaign staff. We've built a coalition that includes everyone from Latrice Walker in Brooklyn to Mike Bloomberg to Ina Vernikov. And so it's the first time in decades that I can think of where you really see a bipartisan coalition coming together to fight for the future of the city and the vision that we want for the city. So we're incredibly proud of that. And we'll see tonight if that coalition is able to take it over the top. But it's incredibly energized, and it's been heartening for me
given an era that has been so hyper-polarized, to see that kind of unity.
Speaking of polarization and unity, you know, last night President Trump specifically called on his supporters to support the governor instead of their party candidate, Republican Curtis Sliwa. You know, how does a figure like that work into the former governor's campaign and create this idea of unity?
You know, what President Trump did last night, no one expected, and we'll see how that works out. It obviously wasn't something that the governor sought, and I think that all along President Trump has been pretty clear that he was against Zoran Mamdani, and he viewed Curtis Sliwa as not a viable candidate. So I viewed it more as an endorsement against Zoran Mamdani and against his own party candidate, and saying he's a spoiler, which is something we've also been saying for quite some time.
And then this is the second bid for the governor after losing in the primary. What did you guys change, you think, from that loss to now that you think really made the difference in this campaign?
Everything from top to bottom. You know, I think in the primary, we were really running a four-corner defense strategy where we were trying to maintain a lead, and it was to our own fault. You know, he wasn't out enough, he wasn't accessible to you in the press enough, he wasn't pressing the flesh enough, and I don't think that we were aggressive enough in both presenting his affirmative vision for the city and debunking Zoran Mamdani's fantasy. And I think we changed all of those things during the general election, and we're leaving it all on the field. I mean, he was out last night campaigning until midnight. He voted this morning, and he has not been back to his apartment since. So we're incredibly proud of the general election race that we ran, and I think it's really resonated and struck a chord with voters.
Okay, well, we'll see after polls close at 9 p.m. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Errol, I'm going to turn it over to you. Hearing right there that they're feeling very confident about those results that we're going to get in just a few hours.
All right, thanks very much, Kelly. We're going to check in now with our Dan Rivoli. He's standing by at the campaign party for Curtis Sliwa. That's on the Upper West Side. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Errol. The Sliwa supporters are starting to come in. Spirits are high.
Curtis
People
Sliwa.
are having a good time. I even saw a few red berets. They did not belong to Curtis. They belong to some of the original Guardian Angels. So the Sliwa supporters are starting to come in and fill this place and are waiting for those polls to close and see the votes start coming in. And I'm joined here right now by Ashwin Prabhaharan, the deputy campaign manager for Curtis Sliwa. Ashwin, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for having me down. Tell me about starting the day where President Trump says, vote for Cuomo, and then a vote for Curtis Sliwa is a vote for Zoran Mamdani. Was Curtis in the campaign surprised by that?
No. I think this is a sentiment that we've seen kind of for a while, with President Trump saying, you know, if I have to choose between a communist and a Democrat, I choose a Democrat. And Curtis is unfazed by this, because like he said before, the people get to make their choice. No one gets to buy the election. No one gets to direct other people. People decide who they want to run the city. And Curtis Sliwa won a primary. He won his party's nomination. He's rightfully on the ballot and on the Protect Animals lines that his wife Nancy helped pioneer. So President Trump's endorsement of Andrew Cuomo is nothing new, nothing surprised. I'd be more concerned for Andrew Cuomo if I were him.
And tell me about the last day of the campaign. He was in some Republican areas of New York City, really taking responsibility for being the top Republican in the ticket, trying to help those down ballot Republicans. Tell me about his time on the campaign trail on that last day.
For sure. I mean, you got it right? This guy's at the top of the ballot. He has an obligation to help the down ballot candidates. We're talking about city council, a couple of competitive city council races. We got Alicia Vaikunas out in Middle Village. Vicky Palladino's running for re-election. Councilwoman Christy Marmorato in the Bronx. I mean, he's been pounding the pavement. He's been very happy with the response he's seen. And it's just very...
Damn it!
He's been talking about people making... exercising their democratic right to vote. And we saw today, I mean, record turnout, so he's very happy with what he's seeing, and the response has been great. So
we've been talking earlier about the Republican turnout, that the percentage of GOP voters early voting this time rivaled even last year in a presidential election with Trump at the top of the ticket. Tell me about that turnout, what it means for the Sliwa campaign.
Every poll that we've seen come out since the primary in June has shown Curtis Sliwa has one of the most enthusiastic bases. And that's something to keep in mind. I mean, President Trump brought that out in 2024 with New York. I mean, he got some of the highest numbers of Republicans seen in the city in decades. Curtis Sliwa has been able to match it because he's a household name. The guy's given his life life to the city, and people know him, people trust him. So that's just a reflection of that. That's what the turnout tells us.
All right, Osman, thank you so much for joining us on New York. We appreciate it. Errol, so as you heard, big GOP turnout. Of course, the big question is, did the Trump factor make a difference once those Republicans were in the voting booth, Errol?
Okay, and so, Dan, we know that Curtis has been trying to be a good leader of his ticket and help other Republicans from around the city. Is there evidence of any of them sort of arrived there at the watch party?
We're waiting for them to come. We know the Republican leader in the city council, Joanna Ariola, is expected to be here. Vicky Palladino, the Queens GOP councilwoman representing Northeast Queens and parts of Whitestone, she has a competitive race. She'll be here. Curtis Sliwa was out stepping with her. And then, of course, we saw Sliwa out in East Bronx with Christine Marmorato. So he's really trying to get out there and get the Republicans out to the polls, not only for him, but those Republican candidates in tough races, particularly Marmorato. Palladino surely welcomes Sliwa. She is one of the Republican politicians who stuck by Sliwa when some other Republicans were deciding to throw their lot with Andrew Cuomo.
All right, thanks very much, Dan. We'll be checking in with you in just a little bit longer from now. The polls close in about 40 minutes, by the way. So everybody should, if you still have a chance to go out and vote, you should go ahead and do that. I'm here in studio with our Ayanna Harry. We're trying to figure out what all of this means. What do you think the surge in voting means? Which candidate do you think will benefit from it?
It's so tough to tell. At the start of early voting, we saw an uptick from voters over 50, and that seemed to bode well for Andrew Cuomo. But then over the weekend, there was a surge of younger voters, and that seems to indicate more of a support for Zohran Mamdani. So I am eagerly awaiting once we get all of these numbers in. But it's incredible to think that as of 6 p.m., 1.75 million New York City voters have already participated in this process. As you mentioned, this is not just being closely watched throughout the city or throughout the country, but really across the globe. We have even seen people come in from other countries to New York City to volunteer, particularly for Zohran Mamdani. So far, we have surpassed the number of people who came out to vote in New York City back to 2001, and we could even surpass the numbers we saw back in 1989 or 1993 when David Dinkins and Rudy Giuliani were both on the ballot each of those years, and those were some very hotly contested races. So New Yorkers are engaged. They care about the future of the city.
You know, it's interesting, too, that age plays out differently in some ways than we might anticipate. So generally speaking, when we look at the polls, older voters tend to lean towards Cuomo. Younger voters are skewing heavily towards Mamdani. But you grew up in a part of Brooklyn where, you know, there are older people who in their youth were taking over buildings.
Absolutely.
They were involved in labor strikes. They are not necessarily conservative, and they might, in fact, be ready for a new, young, progressive candidate.
And if there's one thing we've learned in this election cycle, it's that the Mamdani campaign has really shifted some of our traditional ways in which we approach and think about electorate and how people vote, who they might vote for. So yes, I do see some older New Yorkers perhaps looking to Zohran Mamdani, and these are people who have perhaps worked their whole lives, have tried to move up in New York City, and they're facing the affordability crisis just like young New Yorkers. And so, yeah, again, I am so fascinated. I cannot wait to see how these numbers break down.
Okay. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, our Bobby Kuzin will preview some of the other key races that we are tracking at the big board. Also tonight, I'll be talking about the role of the city's South Asian and Jewish communities. They are going to have an impact on this mayoral contest, and we're going to hear why from two different experts. Stay with us.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Hess Toy Truck. The Hess truck is back and better than ever. Visit HessToyTruck.com today to purchase the 2025 Hess Stock Car Racers.
What does it take to face cancer with confidence? It takes an expert team that knows your cancer down to the molecule and makes sure you understand every detail. It takes MSK.
To test the toughness of the 3-row Kia Sorento X-Pro and the Kia Sorento Turbo Hybrid, we recreated some of the wettest springs, hottest summers, windiest falls, and coldest winters, all on one track to prove these three-row SUVs were built for the unstoppable. Kia, movement that inspires.
Ready for your thoughts? I think I need to do more with my money. Should I still do renting? I live with my mama. How much should I save for my kids' tuition? What kids? How early is early retirement? How much is in your 401k? All my money's in checking.
Ben, what's on your mind?
Could I be doing more with my money?
Let's look at where you're at and talk your goals.
Make sense of your money with Citizens.
I'm going to make this real simple. National Florist Direct will beat anyone's price by 15% or it's free. Free rooms, 60, 70% off, a big box warehouse, it doesn't matter what the sale or offer is. We'll beat their price by 15% or it's free. Call 888-400-FLOOR and get a guaranteed low price on next day installation of name brand carpet and luxury flooring. 888-400-FLOOR. We beat their price by 15% or it's free. Real simple.
What does it take to face cancer with confidence? It takes cutting-edge treatment, like CAR T therapy. And a little car therapy, too. It takes MSK.
New York One's Weather on the Ones is brought to you by your local Ford stores. Take the season by storm in a weather-ready Ford SUV. View current offers at local.ford.com.
Welcome back to New York One's special coverage of election night in New York City. In addition to the race for mayor, there are several other races on the ballot, from city council to Manhattan district attorney. And our Bobby Kuz has been looking at all of them. He joins us now from the big board with more. Good evening, Bobby.
Good evening, Errol. Anybody who voted in this election knows that there is a lot more on the ballot than just the mayor's race. My ballot was about 4 pages, counting both sides. That's because all the citywide races, all the borough presidencies, all 51 city council seats are on the ballot, as well as 2 of the city's 5 district attorneys. That includes Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. He has become something of a household name in the last couple of years with his successful prosecution of President Donald Trump, which culminated in that conviction last year. That made him something of a lightning rod. Obviously came under a lot of criticism from the right, not only because of the Trump prosecution, but also for this idea that he is soft on crime. And so he drew a couple challengers in this race. Maud Marin, the Republican, known for her activism over the issue of trans youth playing school sports. Diana Florence, an independent in this race. So he's got some challengers. I think he has to be considered the favorite to prevail in this race and win a second term as DA. We mentioned city council. There are about 3 races we are keeping a pretty close eye on tonight. One of them is District 13 in the Northeast Bronx. The Republican incumbent in this seat is Christy Marmorato. Marmorato made a lot of headlines when she won this seat 2 years ago, back in 2023. It was the first time that a Republican represented a city council seat in the Bronx in 40 years. She knocked off an incumbent, Marjorie Velasquez, to win that seat. Now she's trying to defend it against the Democrat, Shirley Aldebal, who's a longtime labor leader. Democrats hoping to flip this seat back into the Democratic column after just 1 term in office for Christy Marmorato. District 30 in Queens. This is Middle Village, Maspeth, parts of Glendale, parts of Elmhurst. This is the Bob Holden seat. Bob Holden, a conservative-leaning Democrat. 2 of his own staffers are running against each other. That's the Republican, Alicia Vachunas, and the Democrat, Phil Wong. They both work in his office. This was kind of a cordial race to begin with. It's gotten a little soured a little bit in recent weeks, but whoever wins this race will be carrying on the legacy of Bob Holden. Not really too far apart from each other ideologically. Holden really a conservative Democrat in the council. And then lastly, let me show you District 47 in South Brooklyn. This is the seat currently held by Justin Brannon, whose term limited out of office. His chief counsel is Kayla Santos-Suoso. She's running as a Democrat. The Republican is businessman George Serentopoulos. Interesting district, kind of purplish. It's got Bay Ridge and it's got Coney Island, and then in between some sort of conservative-leaning neighborhoods like Bath Beach, parts of Gravesend, parts of Dyker Heights. So we'll see if this can remain in Democratic hands or whether it ends up getting flipped by the Republicans. And lastly, before I send it back to you, just to mention the 6 ballot questions that you saw on your ballot if you went to go vote. Some of those have to deal with affordable housing, here in the city. There's also one that has to do with moving our city elections to presidential years, which would really change the landscape for elections here in the city. So hopefully people flip their ballots and we'll see how they voted on those after 9 o'clock.
All right. Thanks a whole lot, Bobby. We'll start to see some of those numbers popping up within the hour. Meanwhile, on the campaign trail, the candidates for mayor have all clashed over the issues of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. Here's a look back at some of what they had to say.
We should be selling unity, not the division that this man is spreading.
I will protect Jewish New Yorkers and deliver them that safety.
There's no doubt that there's two sides on what's going on, and the passions are very high. That doesn't justify anti-Semitic behavior in New York. It doesn't justify having a Jewish population that feels unprotected in New York.
It took Andrew Cuomo being beaten by a Muslim candidate in the Democratic primary for him to set foot in a mosque.
They're frightened, they're scared. They view you as the arsonist who fanned the flames of anti-Semitism.
I've sought to be the candidate fighting for every single New Yorker, not simply the Muslim candidate.
Whenever there was a need, whenever the Muslim community needed support, I was there.
I'm not guilty of Islamophobia. I've been out there with the guardian angels protecting Muslims and others in this city for 46 years.
It has been a constant talking point on the campaign trail, one that many Muslim and Jewish voters have been paying close attention to. Joining me now to talk about it is a special panel. We've got Amit Singh Baga. He's a Democratic strategist who has worked in federal, state, and local government. David Greenfield is with us. He's a longtime community leader and a former member of the City Council. He currently serves as CEO of the group Met Council, a Jewish charity that serves New Yorkers in need. Welcome back to the program, both of you. When you and I spoke, David, not that long ago, after the primary was over, you said that the question for you was whether or not there was going to be enough leadership coming from Mamdani to satisfy you and other leaders of the Jewish community that he was somebody that you could be open to, that you're never going to see eye to eye on Israel, Zionism, or a number of other things, but that you might be able to reach an accommodation as far as what's needed for the city. How do you feel about that so far?
Look, I think campaigns are a lot of hyperbole, right? I think everything that you're hearing is really the extremes. The reality is that, Zoran has made some overtures. Obviously, we are keen to see what happens next. I do think it is fair to say that there is a lot of concern in the Jewish community. But decisions that he's made, like offering the position of police commissioner to Jessica Tisch, that's significant, right? Jessica's a proud member of the Jewish community, someone, obviously, that we all feel very confident and supportive of. And so I think that we're going to have to see what happens tomorrow. It's a new day. Governing is very different than campaigning. And I would be very keen to see whether, in fact, he will tackle the issues of anti-Semitism. And certainly, if he's successful, we will give him the opportunity to do that.
And Amit, some of this is driven by, as well as whatever happens tonight, is driven by numbers. You've been one of the chroniclers of the growth in the South Asian community, the growth in the Muslim community, and now what we see is the political activation of both of those communities, which really sort of form the base of, or a big part of the base of Mamdani's political campaign. How does that change the conversation, the traditional New York conversation about anti-Semitism, tolerance, the Middle East, and so forth?
Well, I think everyone can agree that it is a true New York story that New York City is always evolving. 100 years ago, the Jews and the Italians and the Russians were brand new to New York City, and there was probably a conversation then about how the demographics of the city were changing then. We've seen that those demographics have shifted quite a lot since the 70s and 80s. When my parents first came to New York in 1970, I think there were something like 10,000 Indians in the city of New York. We're now looking at something like almost 500,000 South Asians. And this growth has been driven recently, primarily since the year 2010, by Bangladeshi New Yorkers, as well as New Yorkers from Nepal and Tibet. And so this has changed the composition of New York. And I think one of the things we also have to remember is that when people come from all over the world to New York City, they bring a certain set of their own political experiences. Bangladeshis in particular have been very politically activated in this century. They fought a war of independence against Pakistan in the mid-1970s. There was a tremendous amount of organizing around language, around issues of the economy. And so Bangladeshi New Yorkers have entered the political arena in a different way than even other South Asian counterparts. And so even though we've had this growing South Asian community for decades in New York City, we're really starting to see that Zohran Mamdani's candidacy has started to bring out South Asians in a different way and Muslims in a different way, precisely because he is actually centering that experience as opposed to hiding from it. And that is something really unique and different about this candidacy.
You know, something I've been concerned about as I've seen some of what I consider the worst negative ads I've ever seen. I mean, you know, AI makes it possible for you to just sort of, you know, spit all kinds of horrible negative fantasies out there and then, you know, generate the images. And, you know, most of the people involved in it, I think, should be ashamed of themselves and probably have no place in public life. Honestly, it's been that bad. On the other hand, it becomes all of our responsibility tomorrow morning to try and put the city back together again. How do we do that?
Yeah, so I think about the AI piece, I will say that I think most voters are actually turned off by AI. I think the reason they get so many clicks is people are actually outraged at how obscene some of these AI ads are. So I don't think it's actually resonating. I think that if folks look in terms of how Zohran ran his campaign, I think that his authenticity is actually one of the most important things in his campaign. I think that we need to focus on things that bring people together. And I think the point about hearing about the immigrant experience, I think is wonderful. That's what makes New York, New York. And we celebrate the fact that immigrants are excited about a candidate and they're coming out to the polls in droves. I think that's amazing. I think that we have some issues that we disagree on, and we can agree to disagree on Israel and Palestine. And that's okay. And we need to focus on the issues that matter. We're in a SNAP crisis right now. There's 1.8 million New Yorkers who literally don't know where they're getting their food from this week. Donald Trump has publicly said that he's going to ignore a federal order that orders him to put the money back in there. We're working overtime to try to meet that need. These are the issues I think that we should be working on as New Yorkers, and I think we have to acknowledge that no one's coming to save us. We have to take care of ourselves, our own city, our own state, our own people. We have to remember that we're New Yorkers first, and we have to come back together regardless of what happens tonight. Put that aside tomorrow morning and work in the best interest of the future of the city of New York.
No question about it. Zohran Mamdani gave what I consider an extraordinary speech that he addressed specifically to the Muslim community. And it's when you read the text of it that you realize it's actually a very, very powerful speech. His delivery was just kind of, you know, sort of passionate, earnest. He looked right into the camera. But when you read the words, it was really quite defiant. And he sort of summarized almost a quarter century of grievances that he said, of people being mistreated and of a community being made to feel like it's a guest in the city that they helped build and are currently running. That suggests to me that, as is often the case in these sort of questions of ethnic succession, I guess is the sociological term, when new immigrant groups are getting a seat at the table, it's not necessarily going to be a smooth process, and there are some grievances that have to at least be aired, if not actually resolved.
That's 100% right. You used the word guest. I would go a little further to say an unwelcome guest, right? Muslims, and it's a little bit of a dark irony that Zohran Mamdani is likely going to be the next mayor of New York City on the same day that Dick Cheney leaves this earth. I personally think that's a bit of a dark irony. But, you know, what we've seen over decades at this point, particularly after 9/11, is that the apparatus of the city of New York has actually been weaponized against many different communities. We know that former Mayor Michael Bloomberg ran a undercover, years-long NYPD surveillance operation where they infiltrated mosques all over the city and really ultimately sowed a lot of terror and fear into otherwise law-abiding New Yorkers who really just want to be able to get through their day, try to afford the roofs over their heads, try to put food on the table. As David was saying, people have really critical needs that need to be met, and city government's primary role is ensuring that we meet those needs. And so I think in the process of, in the absence, let's say, of a formal Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the likes of which you might have seen in other places, we have a really unique opportunity in this moment to have an honest conversation about South Asians, not just Muslims, but South Asians broadly in New York City, the role that we play in our economy, in our civic life, and the ways in which we have actually been mistreated and we have been maligned. And so this, I think, for South Asians, this presents a unique and first of its kind opportunity to re-enter civic life.
Yeah, I thought this was a theme even before Mamdani's rise, is that the way we treat immigrants in this city of immigrants is really disgraceful to a certain extent. If you look at sort of where people end up socially and economically and how they're marginalized. We have a lot of, kind of warm, romantic rhetoric about the Statue of Liberty and the City of Immigrants, but there's a lot that needs to change.
Look, I think what has to change is the politics affair should really end tonight, right? I don't think that there's any objective person who looked at this campaign and said, wow, this is really great that we've managed to increase anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and discrimination against immigrants, right? That's obscene. I think that what really moves New York is what moves voters, is a positive vision forward. And I think we all have a responsibility, we're leaders, to get together and say, okay, where are the pain points? Where can we work together? Where can we lift each other up? In a time, I will say this again, where I honestly believe no one's coming to save New York. In fact, we've heard very explicitly that New York is going to be under attack over the next few years, financially and politically. If we're not coming together tomorrow and working, we've got bigger problems than our problematic campaign.
It's true. We're right. Save the city first, and then we can get back to our own little, parochial fights. Listen, thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with you. Stick around. We've got a lot more to talk about throughout the night. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, the race for mayor is making national waves. President Trump weighing in on what should happen in his hometown. We're going to bring you a report from Washington, D.C. in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
I love this city. It's just getting so expensive, and I feel like the city has so many opportunities for people, so much culture, so much tradition, and we should be able to live here. We should be able to afford to live here.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters on your smart TV and connected devices, streaming live 24/7, plus on-demand weather forecasts to help you stay prepared. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News, free with your Spectrum subscription, exclusively for Spectrum customers, now available on your favorite devices.
3 reasons I chose Kitchen Saver and why you should too. Kitchen Saver has so many styles to choose from. I transformed my outdated brown kitchen into a modern, sleek gray kitchen with less mess and stress than a traditional remodel. The Kitchen Saver installers were very friendly and super efficient. They completed my makeover in less than 5 days, which was really impressive. And lastly, I feel safe knowing I'm covered with their 10-year warranty. I highly suggest checking out Kitchen Saver.
Prepare to be impressed. Kitchen Saver. Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. Will this be on the test? Yes, sure. Why not?
It's only all my loved ones in one place.
You mean us? Mom?
Of course.
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify! Yeah!
If only never missing our favorite shows.
Got it, right?
It's only on the ninth court. Drama, comedy, telenovelas, everything.
It's only even more plot twists.
Hey, this isn't your house?
See? Plot twist.
Who are you even talking to?
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV. Get all your favorite streaming apps with live TV included at no extra cost. It's only everything.
You're watching New York One special coverage of election night. President Donald Trump, a former resident of New York City, has loomed over the race for mayor for months now. Yesterday, the president urged New Yorkers to cast their ballot for Andrew Cuomo over the Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa. In a Truth Social post, Donald Trump said that in order to defeat Zoran Mamdani, voters, quote, really have no choice. He then reiterated his threat to withhold federal funds from the city should Mamdani win. Evan Kosloff in our Washington, D.C. bureau is tracking that part of the story, and he joins us now with the latest. Good evening, Evan.
Well, hey there, Errol. Of course, he has many opinions about New York, a city he cares about quite a bit, and he's emerged
as a major critic of Mamdani, you referenced some of those social media posts that he's put out, not only saying don't vote for him, but taking the step to say don't vote for the Republican, vote for the independent Andrew Cuomo as an effort to make it so that Mamdani does not win. Before we say anything else, why don't we just take a listen to some of the things he's been saying from the Oval Office in recent weeks. Take a listen.
I'm not a fan of Cuomo one way or the other, but if it's going to be between a bad Democrat and a communist, I'm going to pick the bad Democrat all the time. But I wouldn't be generous to a communist, a guy that's going to take the money and throw it out the window, because you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. We have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to. Cuomo might have a chance of winning if it was a one-on-one. If it's not one-on-one, it's going to be a hard race. But we're going to end up with a communist man. It's not even believable, my beautiful New York.
And in the recent days before the election, you referenced some of the social media posts. I'll read you just a little bit of one of the lengthy posts on Monday where he was talking about Cuomo in that endorsement, saying, I would much rather see a Democrat who has had a record of success win than a communist with no experience and a record of complete and total failure. That was President Trump on Monday. And then on Tuesday, escalated it yet again, writing on social media, any Jewish person that votes for Zohran Mamdani, a proven and self-professed Jew hater, is a stupid person. And then lastly, Errol, of course, getting a lot of attention are those threats to withhold federal funding if Mamdani does win. The question is whether the courts will actually allow that.
Yeah, well, that's a nice way of saying that what the president is proposing is illegal, to simply withhold money from the state, government money that's otherwise owed, based on the political outcome that the president personally did not like. As you said, that may end up in court. Let me ask you about some of the other politics here. The Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, who represents New York State, ended up, we're closing in on the end of the election, and he never endorsed in this race. Is he worried about fallout for the National Democratic Party if Mamdani should win?
Right. If you're waiting for that endorsement, time is running out because we still have not gotten it. There's been a really muted response from a lot of Democrats. Of course, Mamdani does have his supporters. You could reference people like Senator Bernie Sanders, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They have supported Mamdani, and yet you were referencing Schumer. He's just one of many. He was asked earlier today on Capitol Hill directly who he voted for. Was it Cuomo or was it Mamdani? And his response was, look, I voted, and I look forward to working with the next mayor to help New York City. So didn't really say publicly who he went for. Similarly, Hakeem Jeffries did eventually endorse Mamdani, but he took quite a while to do so, and he was asked whether he saw Mamdani as the face, or rather I should say the future of the Democratic Party, and his response was no, saying that it's the House caucus overall that's the future, saying it's not just people like Mamdani. It really is this interesting dichotomy that we're seeing play out here, where there are some people that will say if Mamdani wins, look, that's the future of the Democratic Party. And yet you can also look at what just happened in Virginia, for example. Abigail Spanberger, a moderate one. So, yeah, a lot of questions about what the future of the Democratic Party is. I don't think that's going to be solved even if Mamdani wins.
Yeah, don't skip over that. We've been buried in New York City political news. Well, tell us what happened in Virginia.
Yes, so this is a big story right now as, we're always looking for clues in these off-year elections about how voters are feeling. And so there's a lot of attention to these two big governor's races, one in Virginia and then the other one in New Jersey. No result just yet in New Jersey, but Virginia, what we had here was Abigail Spanberger, I just mentioned, a moderate Democrat. She won back in 2018 to represent Virginia on Capitol Hill. And she was successful in beating out the Republican in Virginia, Winsome Earl Sears, who's the current lieutenant governor in Virginia. It's a Republican that currently is in control in Richmond, Glenn Youngkin, and now it's been a reversal. So like I was saying, there are going to be some people that point to this and say, look, that's the future of the Democratic Party, although we should note Virginia has this long history, Errol, of going the opposite direction as the White House. We'll have one result in the White House, and then 1 year later, Virginia votes. And so it's been pretty common that they go the other way. That's what we saw here, where, of course, we've got the Republican in the White House, and now we've got a Democrat in Richmond.
Okay, now going back to Washington, where you are, in addition to President Trump, there are Republicans there in Washington and all around the country who have been weighing in on the race for mayor in New York, and in particular Zohran Mamdani. What are they saying?
Yeah, they've been very critical of Mamdani. And, you know, we've been on Capitol Hill covering this shutdown, and it seems that almost every day these Republican leaders are bringing up Mamdani. They want the attention to be on him. You know, the framing they have of this shutdown is that it's continuing because mainstream Democrats are scared of the far left, including people like Mamdani. That's the framing that we hear day after day from people like House Speaker Mike Johnson. And Errol, I think that this is going to continue. Just a week ago, we saw a memo come out from the NRCC, which is the campaign arm, and really they're saying that they're going to focus on Mamdani. I want to read this for you here, saying House Republicans will make Zohran Mamdani famous in battleground races next November, running against this unpopular agenda, which is the new face of the Democratic Party. So clearly, what we're seeing here is they think that Mamdani is a liability when it comes to battleground states. Political analyst was telling me the other day that what works in Manhattan, New York, won't necessarily work in Manhattan, Kansas. Time will tell.
Okay, we shall see. Thanks very much, Evan. For more analysis, I'm joined here in studio by Ayanna Harry. And what do you make of that, this idea that Mamdani is going to be, I guess, an anchor around the necks of Democrats running nationally?
I think time will have to tell, and we'll also have to see how Zohran Mamdani actually delivers and leads as mayor of New York City if he is to win the election tonight.
Yeah, in some ways it's amazing that there are people who would project what kind of an image or what kind of a mayoralty he would have if he should win.
Yes.
And the votes haven't even been tallied yet.
The votes haven't been tallied yet, but it's also been fascinating to watch a lot of the misinformation about Zohran Mamdani that we see almost repeated daily by politicians throughout the country. He went from being a democratic socialist to being a socialist to being a communist, in the words of some people. And so there's been an incredible amount of misinformation about Zohran Mamdani, where he actually stands, what his policies are, but it has been used as a symbol of, if you're not careful and you elect Democrats, this is what's going to happen to your city. That socialism is going to come in and sweep in and take over. And so it's definitely been used to drum up fear in parts of the country.
You know, in trying to explain what Schumer is doing and why, it's worth pointing out to our viewers that there is no sort of organized Democratic Party in a hierarchical sense. It's not like Chuck Schumer answers to anybody. He's an independent player, and frankly, he's the most powerful of the Democrats that have been elected. On the other hand, there are donors, and they carry quite a lot of sway. And if the donors are saying, we don't want you anywhere near this guy Mamdani, that might be what Schumer is responding to. But there are all of these different sort of power centers. There are a bunch of labor leaders, there's a bunch of billionaires, there are a bunch of activists, there are climate activists, civil rights activists, and others.
And I imagine that Senator Schumer is also listening to his fellow Democratic senators and hearing what they may be thinking about, what they may be feeling. And he could hear from them some concern that if he backs Zohran Mamdani and gives a little bit more support to his campaign, that they're going to be feeling it even more in their district, concern from other Democrats. So I imagine in all of the people that Senator Schumer is hearing from, that those fellow senators also have very loud voices in that conversation as well.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. Well, the polls are set to close in just a few minutes at 9 p.m. Let's send it over to our Courtney Gross right now. She's in Studio N analyzing tonight's race with a panel of experts. Take it away, Courtney.
Thanks, Errol. In just a few minutes, polls will close around the 5 boroughs, and we are just getting word that as for turnout, 2 million voters have turned out in this mayoral contest, the highest we have seen in many decades. And of course, all eyes are on this hotly contested mayoral race, and I'm joined by a special panel of consultants and experts to break it all down. First, I'm joined by former City Council Minority Leader Joe Borelli, who represented parts of Staten Island. Christina Greer is a New York One political commentator, a Fordham University professor, and host of the FAQ podcast. And Stu Lozer is a longtime Democratic consultant who served as press secretary under Mayor Michael Bloomberg. You are all experts in this. We've all been watching this mayoral contest for many, many months, if not more than a year as of this point. I want to talk about the final notes in this campaign, how the closing messages worked out. And Joe Borelli, I'll start with you. Andrew Cuomo went very dark in the final weeks of this campaign. There were accusations of Islamophobia. Do you think that message resonated with voters in New York?
I'm not sure. Look, we saw Curtis Lewa essentially try that playbook, right? The message from him was basically the city's falling to crap and we're all going to die, right? And that didn't get him more than 15, 16% of the vote in any one of the polls. I'm not sure why Cuomo would have adopted that slogan and not adopted something else and tried to paint a more bright picture of the future of what a Cuomo administration might look like. I think that's something that Zoran Mamdani very correctly did. Look, he is someone that a lot of people can find flaws about things that he's said over the years, positions he's taken over the years. He kept the campaign about the opposite, about what does the future of New York look like under Mayor Mamdani. I think that's why you saw some turnout in areas where he's predicted to do well in. And I think that's why ultimately it might give him the advantage as we go into the final 10 minutes of polling.
I mean, does this turn out, Christina, to be a bit of a change election? I mean, he's harnessing, Mamdani is harnessing this new group of voters, potentially young voters. We're seeing, I was talking about the turnout numbers, we're seeing people turn out in droves that we haven't seen in a decade.
Right. I think there's so many interesting things that Mamdani has done to motivate people to get off of, to organize in social media and then come into the streets and actually campaign for him. I mean, there's a campaign of joy. Even though he's talking about affordability and how so many New Yorkers are feeling the crunch, he's also saying, we choose to live here. We love, actually, unlike the vice president who says, we don't want neighbors who speak a different language, we're here because we actually don't mind neighbors who speak a different language. We actually don't mind buttressing up to people on the subway. And so there's a joy and an optimism and a very clear message that he put out, sort of very clear points, that Cuomo nor Sleva were able to articulate. So, yes, there's doom and gloom in the city, but Mamdani is saying we can translate that, whereas Cuomo is essentially saying, I don't like Mamdani. That's the takeaway. That was the closing message from him. Whereas Mamdani is saying, well, collectively, we actually can do more, and we don't actually have to accept the status quo, which is what they're offering.
Stu, do you think that positive message is going to work, or is that what we're going to see when the polls close in a couple of minutes?
Look, I mean, I beg to differ slightly on your overall take. I don't think the closing message was all that different than the message throughout this general election campaign. This was a campaign in which Assemblyman Mamdani had a very positive vision and talked about himself, and Andrew Cuomo also talked about Zoran Mamdani. This is an election in which Mamdani's voters felt very strongly about Mamdani, and Cuomo's voters felt very strongly about Mamdani. There are people who voted for Mamdani, and there are a lot of people who voted against Mamdani and for Cuomo. Not so many people out there actually saying Andrew Cuomo and his housing, his education, and anything like that. The question is, the polls that are out there are asking us questions like, who are you going to vote for and how much do you like your candidate? Well, that's the wrong question to ask if most people who are voting for Andrew Cuomo are actually driven by very strong feelings about Mamdani. So there's a small chance that we're going to see something unexpected. It's a small chance.
And that brings me to what President Donald Trump was just tweeting out, or actually truth socialing out, if that's how we say it. Truth, I'm sorry. Okay, so the truths that he put out over the last 24 hours or so was, if we can pull them up on the screen, obviously him basically endorsing the quasi-endorsement of Andrew Cuomo, and then he put out another one this morning talking about anyone who would be Jewish who would be voting for Mamdani is somewhat of a Jew hater, I think is the exact quote that he used. You know, in a city in the 5 boroughs where Trump's approval rating is already pretty low, I mean, I would think that Andrew Cuomo would not want this type of endorsement, that this would end up backfiring, Christina.
Yeah, well, he's been trying to thread this really cautious needle because on the one hand, he has been courting Trump supporters in New York City, of which there are a number. And on the other hand, he knows that Democrats actually do not support this president and many of his policies, and they find them draconian, ICE and National Guard and all the things. But to Stu's point, I mean, Andrew Cuomo hasn't really given voters a reason to vote for him. So the votes that we're going to see are against Mamdani, but they're not for Andrew Cuomo. There's no passion there. So having the president come and try and put his thumb on the scale, that doesn't really inspire people to vote for Andrew Cuomo yet again. It's just another instance of no Mamdani.
I think the 3 of us, and maybe the 4 of us, are all in agreement that this is really a referenda on Mamdani and his vision for democratic socialism and how that could be implemented on a municipal scale, right? That really is the question. The other doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, people, whether it was Adams in the last few minutes that would have maybe approached him, come up in the polls if he stayed in, if Sleva was the only candidate in the race, how would that affect it? I don't think those questions actually matter more than this was a referendum. The way to combat that would have been to actually pull apart some of the things that Mamdani has talked about. And there are great things that to question. You know, he talks about housing. He talks about, housing is probably a great example, right? He talks about freezing the rent, essentially rent stabilizing a lot of units around the city. It's a fair case to point at our current rent-stabilized system and talk about how terrible it is. He talks about building more public housing. Look at NYCHA. It's inarguably the worst landlord in the city of New York, right? These are all things that if I was running the campaign against him, I would have spent time picking apart his arguments rather than just saying, everything's bad, the city's falling to crap, and if you vote for Mamdani, it's going to get worse.
But you did support Andrew Cuomo. You are a Republican who happened to not support Curtis Lewa here and support Andrew Cuomo instead, which is what we had seen a little bit of a trend in the final days of this campaign.
Look, I'm a Republican, but I liken it to football, right? If the head coach builds a bad team and calls the wrong plays time after time, it's not the fans' fault that the team's not doing well. I think that's what we saw from the Sliwa campaign, right? He just couldn't get the candidacy off the ground. So for people who don't believe in the vision of progressive socialism and democratic socialism for the city, it was a really tough choice to say, I think Andrew Cuomo is a better option for the city of New York. Will it be enough? I don't know. But that's why the Trump, quasi-endorsement may affect the race to some degree because it did give some Republicans, of which there's, still at the latest poll, 15% of the electorate, it did give them permission or encouragement to move off their candidate because of his failings and move on to Cuomo.
You sound like a Jets fan.
Moving on from Trump, one of the top Democrats in this city did not endorse, the top Democrats in this city, the top Democrats in this country, Charles Schumer, did not endorse Zohran Mamdani. We saw Hakeem Jeffries end up endorsing Mamdani in the final weeks of this campaign, but Schumer wouldn't even tell us today who he voted for. We caught up with him in D.C. I want to play that clip. We may not have that clip. Essentially, he says he will not be telling us who he votes for. I think we have it now. You can play it.
Today is election day in New York City. Did you vote for Mamdani or Cuomo?
Look, I voted, and I look forward to working with the next mayor to help New York City.
Racist! So he says he voted, and he looks forward to helping the next mayor of New York City. Stu, once upon a time, a couple decades ago, you did work for him. You did work for him. I mean, not like you can get in his head now necessarily, but why do you think he stayed on the sidelines of this? And what was the calculus for the Democrat?
So number one, it's been said 100 times, I'll say it again, stipulate they worked together well when one was a senior senator and one was a very junior assemblyman. Zohran Mamdani brought Chuck along on the issue of taxi medallions and redemption, and Chuck brought that over the line. They have an actual record of accomplishment together. So setting that aside, but Chuck has 3 responsibilities, let's say. One is to be the best senator for New York State that we've ever had. He's doing that. One is to be the Senate Majority Leader and try and increase the Democratic. One is to be the Senate Democratic leader and try and retake the majority, become the majority, and bring the Democrats back in. And one is to do New York politics. So, taking over, fighting in New York, fighting Senate seats in other parts of the country is not only more important for the Senate Democratic leader, it's more important for the mayor of the city of New York. If you're Zohran Mamdani, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a Democratic senator in Georgia, a Democratic senator in North Carolina, swing states, or would you rather have Chuck Schumer's endorsement? And if Chuck's endorsement could be used, misconstrued, and used against a Democratic candidate in either of those states, and it costs you even 5 votes, why would you do it? There's just no upside.
Stu, this is the fight. This is the fight for the soul of the party. You had Chris Van Hollen, the perennial, poker of Chuck Schumer, was out in Iowa. Last week, telling Democrats there that Chuck Schumer's spineless. You're not supporting.
I heard you say this before.
This is the fight for the party.
He has this Zohran Mamdani doctors with this democratic socialist agenda on affordability, which is the exact same agenda that Donald Trump, your candidate, ran on.
I'm just wondering what a Democratic senator said about Chuck in relation to
Zohran Mamdani is offering a
Thank you both.
better view of Donald Trump's
Thank you both. I love the passion. I love the arguments. We're going to stick a pin in it for now. We're going to come back to this in a little bit. For now, we're going to go back to Errol and the rest of the team in the other newsroom.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Courtney. I'm here in our studio with our Ayanna Harry as we're trying to make sense of all of this. But one thing that seems clear is that there is a surge of interest and there's a surge of voting that we've never seen before.
Yeah, we have now reached the mark of 2 million voters here in New York City. The last time that we hit 2 million voters was 1969. So this is really a significant turnout throughout the 5 boroughs.
Oh,
what
God.
we've seen in the last few days, as of 6 p.m. when we did get that last breakdown from the Board of Elections, is Brooklyn leading the way with voter turnout, followed by Manhattan and then Queens. And so overall, this is pretty unprecedented for the last 25 years to have this many New Yorkers engaged and coming out and voting. And from what we've heard throughout our reporters who've been all across the city, so far it seems like there have been no real issues in the lines. Perhaps that's because 700,000 people already voted before today, so that did take a little bit of the load off of our election day sites.
Yeah, you take some of the strain off, and it's actually a pretty decent system. We've seen it overload and collapse, frankly, in the past. It is, of course, very interesting to see all of this happen in the context of a race where tens of millions of dollars in outside money, for sure, plus about $48 to $50 million coming from the matching fund. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is 9 o'clock. The polls are now closed around the 5 boroughs on a day of heavy turnout in the race for mayor. You're going to see results very soon at the bottom of your screen. But what you'll see in our election ticker is the results that the Associated Press is using, and that includes a number that's called expected votes as the ballots are counted. That number is based on turnout in recent elections. Over the next few minutes, the results of early voting and most of the absentee ballots will be released. You're going to see those votes very quickly on your screen. There's typically a short lag between the count of the early vote and the count of the ballots that have been cast on Election Day, the ones that have been cast today. Also, as a reminder, absentee ballots can be postmarked as late as today. So there will be a few outstanding absentee ballots to be counted after tonight, which could matter if the race turns out to be very close. Our team coverage is continuing as we wait for the results to come in. We're going to stay in studio with our Ayanna Harry and with Bobby Kuza at the big board. So there are going to be a lot of people, Ayanna, as I mentioned, who have an explanation about why this happened. But it seems to me you can't discount $100+ million being spent on ads telling people to come out and vote.
Yes, and those ads have not just been on the radio and on television, but also on social media. And so it's been interesting to see the ways in which Instagram and TikTok have really dominated a lot of conversations. There are New Yorkers who their algorithms are getting all, pro Cuomo content, or people are getting pro Mamdani content. And it's been fascinating to watch Zohran Mamdani and his real mastery of social media. He has done interviews with you, with MSNBC, but also with people who are popular on social media, people who are popular on TikTok. And I think that has led to part of the ways in which he's been able to mobilize a real ground game, particularly amongst younger New Yorkers.
Our central platform here, of course, is TV, or what they call linear TV. But I know you've also done a lot of social media, and I've noticed throughout this race that when I've done some walk and talks, some interviews, when we post stuff on social media, some of it really takes off. It's not, there's no particular rhyme or reason to it, but sometimes there's interest that takes it into hundreds of thousands of views.
And perhaps one reason why is because on social media, there's an opportunity for people to write a comment, to have, sometimes I notice there are conversations that develop between some of our viewers in the comments on social media in a way that you can't have a conversation with a traditional television ad.
Yeah, no, that's very true. In fact, we have people who are essentially like panelists,
Yes.
You can reliably hear from them from a particular point of view on whatever the reason might be. I guess that is a way of engagement, because the candidates themselves have been trying to catch fire, every single day.
You watching it?
Stuff to try and do exactly that.
Yeah, and some have been more successful.
What channel?
Andrew Cuomo drew a little bit of criticism from after re-entering the race, saying he will run as an independent in the general election. He released a campaign video on social media, but then people...
From one championship to another, it's time to kick off the women's speed.
You racist! against you, but
I can't find the game.
Xfinity has all the best live and streaming games in one place. All you gotta
during the primary, which I think is just objectively true, right?
Yes.
He kind of hit his rhythm. He's getting in the streets. So he wrote to
Of Brooklyn in his mind to this race.
So he's just really excited to be here. He's really made an effort to go out to all 5 boroughs throughout this campaign. He held his primary nights on
we all
Queens
gotta
when
stick
it came
together.
to a rooftop bar. He was there
becomes
in
mayor,
the background.
we all gotta
You
stick
saw
together
Ed Koch
and
Bridge,
help
and it
each
had a lot
other
of
out.
significance for him. He's a huge fan of Mayor Ed Koch. He's a huge fan of Mayor LaGuardia. He's here tonight because this really represents to him a moment of change, a moment of hope. Now this
They're saying it was fixed.
venue holds around 27
Hello?
people, and we were.
They said it might have been fixed.
Actually, his campaign, if you'll remember,
What?
he held a rally with 10,000 supporters.
No, but to him, if he got all the Muslim votes.
At least to fit this capacity tonight, 2,700. You're going to have quite a few hundred supporters here tonight, reporters here, and then you're going to have, I'm guessing, over 1,000 supporters here for him tonight.
Yeah, the world is watching, no doubt about it. All right, Morgan, we're going to check back in with you in a little bit. We appreciate it. Let's go right now to Linda Schmidt. She's in Midtown at the Andrew Cuomo election night event. Linda, same question. You paint us the scene there. What's the mood like at Cuomo headquarters?
Yeah, hi there, Steve. Well, so far, no fireworks or anything like that going on here at his campaign headquarters, but the room is starting to fill up with supporters. So that is a big change from the last time that I spoke with you guys. But you know, you talk about New York City, the Board of Elections posting on X that we have reached 2 million voters. That is the first time since 1969. So that speaks volumes about the interest that New York City residents have had in this mayor's race. And earlier today, when Andrew Cuomo voted, he came out and there was a press gaggle afterward, and he had said that he felt inspired and he felt that it was a good sign that there was high voter turnout. He also talked about this being the most important election of his lifetime because it could determine the future of the Democratic Party. Now, I don't know if you're looking at the video yet, but if it has not been rolling, go ahead and look at it now, because this is him when he was arriving to vote at 10 o'clock this morning at a high school here in Midtown. He was with his 2 daughters and one of his son-in-laws, and he talked about, that he felt good about, like I said, good about the fact that that there was a large voter turnout. But the thing that we do have to point out here, though, is that when he lost the primary back in June to Mamdani by 13 points, he said he had made a huge mistake by not having boots on the ground, by not meeting voters where they were, meaning he was not out on the streets with them, going into the bodegas, talking to cab drivers, going into mom and pop shops, the way that Mamdani had done. And he said that he was going to change his style, but he did not really change the style until about 2 weeks ago. Now, yesterday, he had a very busy day. He was on the Upper West Side, he was at a radio station, he was in the Bronx, Washington Heights, he was in Chinatown at a senior center, and also a senior center in Flatbush, Brooklyn. He was also in Staten Island. But again, these events in the past 2 weeks, they were always organized small events. They were not the type of get out hand in hand where Mamdani would be walking down city streets. That's not what Cuomo had been doing. Is that going to end up hurting him? We're going to have to wait and see. But as of right now, the mood here, much better than what it was 45 minutes ago. But again, we're going to have to wait and see.
Did very well. We appreciate it. All right, Linda Schmidt, thanks so much. Curtis Sliwa hosting his election night event on the Upper West Side. That's where we find Kendall Green. Kendall, paint the picture. What's the mood there right now?
Hey, what's going on, Steve? This isn't a large venue, but within the last maybe 20 minutes or so, it seems like this place just got packed very quickly, and I can see a bunch of the supporters of Curtis Sliwa. They're starting to watch the screens as those numbers start coming in. Some of them are seeing that he's a little bit lower in the polls so far as those results come in, but we actually had our cameras rolling while he was out on the campaign trail on the final moments, and we've got the video of their making this final push for Biden there in Middle Village, Queens. gains.
I don't understand.
To shift some voters in the assembly members are.
Don't understand it all.
To walk away victorious. Now, Sliwa, he was at the podium speaking, making
What?
sure that his stance is clear as a Republican candidate. So there's nothing left on the table tonight. But in those polls,
Even he went to the college too.
In the teens, and right now we see is a little bit lower than that. The Republican nominee is seen by at least his opponent as a spoil in the race, specifically former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, by now, we're aware of one of the biggest headlines this week for President Trump's backhanded endorsement of Cuomo. Sliwa, he's used it as a jab at the former governor, saying that he's embracing President Trump's endorsement one moment while shunning it on the next. So whether pointing out that difference between Andrew Cuomo and himself is going to turn into voters, we'll have to see in just a few moments. But that's the latest here on the Upper West Side. Kendall Green, Fox 5 News. Steve?
Kendall, we appreciate it. Thank you. All right now let's get a little more perspective on the race for mayor. Joining me here in studio, Brian Brown, a political science professor at St. John's University. Brian, thanks so much for being with us. What's your impression of what we're seeing right now? Massive turnout tonight.
It's great for democracy. It makes my job harder trying to figure out what these voters are thinking as they go to the polls. But the idea that we have this unprecedented turnout is a good thing for New York City and a good thing for democracy.
Right. Given your experience, what is your inclination to pull from these early results, given the amount of turnout we've seen? Does that help Cuomo? Does that help Mamdani? Is this some sort of massive realignment, change election potentially taking shape, or something different?
I think it could be something different. I mean, it's a three-way race, so it's hard to figure out right now. Is it, people pro-Zoran coming out who are energized by an effective campaign he ran, or is it anti-Zoran, who are coming out to vote against them? Whatever the reason is, it's a good thing, and it's one of the reasons, I think, why we should keep these local elections local and not mix them up with the presidential elections.
The ballot question 6 you're talking about. No, it does seem to be a ringing endorsement for keeping them separate from the presidential race, so we can really give it our full focus, which we have. Let's talk about the tactics in the race. We've seen for weeks and months now Andrew Cuomo trying to get Curtis Sliwa to drop out. He refused. He didn't do it. He lost his radio job. He went the distance there. How much of a difference do you think it could have made had he done that? Are we overstating the importance of that? What's your general impression, given the fact that they're all still on the ballot anyway, because no one dropped out in time to get their name off the ballot?
Eric Adams is still on the ballot as well. I think a two-person race would have been something interesting and fun.
He don't even want Cuomo.
But again, we'll see when
the president. He only got 8% if you look at it.
Curtis was a Republican candidate from the get-go.
I don't know why.
Andrew Cuomo lost his primary. There was no reason for Curtis to drop out.
They said if he dropped out,
a lot of pressure, it seems,
Cuomo would be the one.
And we'll see what the end result is.
He refused.
It is
He's right. I wouldn't drop out either.
He is the mayor.
That's why Cuomo don't have all those votes.
He lost the primary, eventually dropped out and endorsed Cuomo. I think it's worthwhile to sort of discuss just how fascinating it is to be got to this place where the current mayor isn't also ran in the whole thing.
Absolutely, and he's really been quiet the last final days of this campaign. The fact that
but he's doing the right thing. He's
trying. In a very tight race, it's just an unconventional.
Cuomo's got 40%. See what? Manzani's got 58.
Does it have sustainability?
Sliwa's got 8.
Because of this uniqueness.
That's what I told you.
Yeah, it is
he
certainly
drops
a fascinating
out.
election.
Those folks will go right to Cuomo.
Appreciate you joining us from St. John's University. The polls are now closed, so we could be getting results anytime now. It'll be fascinating to see. We've been watching this race.
I'm going to wear all American stuff.
All right, we are getting our first results in the New York City Mayor. Numbers. Zoran Mamdani in the lead with 51% of the vote. Andrew Cuomo has 40%. Curtis Sliwa has 8%. So you see, those are the first numbers we're getting 12 minutes after polls close.
We are fucked.
Those are in line with what we've seen so far.
Oh, some gotta get more.
Oh,
somebody's typing.
Mamdani up by about 11 points. Sliwa a little bit lower maybe than anticipated, but nevertheless, Zoran Mamdani with a strong lead right now with 38% of the votes in as we continue to monitor the race for New York City mayor being watched throughout the country and indeed the world. All right, our election coverage just getting started. Up next, we're going to head to New Jersey for the latest on the race for governor. The polls have closed there. They closed at 8. We're going to take a look at the numbers, and Nick has a look at the forecast. Hey, Nick.
I was our forecast rather chilly today as the wind is gone very light and the sky is mainly clear. But that wind is going to come back tomorrow, and it's going to be rather ferocious at times later in the day. So tomorrow night, I'll tell you about it when our coverage continues.
More standard horsepower than Cadillac Escalade, Lincoln Navigator, and BMW X7. And safety, that's first class. Switch up to the 450 horsepower Infiniti QX80.
I've always been a Spectrum customer, so when I started the business, I was just naturally like, yeah, I'm gonna go with Spectrum. It's let me run multiple things at the same time, whether I'm on with clients and I also have to show them their design. It's really special how I got into the industry with my mom getting me that job at the flower shop. It's kind of like she knew what she was doing. She saw that fire in me, and I know that I think she'd be really proud.
Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
What the hell is that?
When a patient walks in with breast cancer, especially someone as young as Danielle, part of our job as physicians is to anticipate the patient's needs even before the patient knows it.
New York Presbyterian knew what I needed before I asked. The first thing is going to be
happened to the Staten Island
IVF because we wanted to have children.
Finding hope at a time when everything feels hopeless, that's what we do.
Staten Island sticking up.
I'm David Wright, former New York Mets third baseman, and I support the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. I've seen firsthand the great work they do helping our firefighters, our police, and our soldiers and their families. T2T is asking for your support for these brave men and women. Just $11 a month will go a long way and make a big difference. Go to T2T.org to find out more. Let's go Mets, and let's do good together.
Every minute counts in the morning, so rise and shine. Useful and important morning news on Good Day Wake Up.
Let's get you up to speed and out the door.
Get caught up on everything that's happening.
We're following breaking news
Around town, around the nation and world.
It's going to be one of the latest stories that we're following.
Plus, get your first look at the morning commute and Mike's forecast.
Those showers kind of break up as we head toward lunchtime.
Join Dan Bowens and Tashana Whitlow for Good Day Wake Up. Weekdays 4:30 to 7 a.m. on Fox Live and streaming free on Fox Local.
Well, the polls in New Jersey closed at 8 o'clock tonight. Let's see where things stand right now in the vote count in the race for governor. Democrat Mikey Sherrill, of course, up against Republican Jack Ciattarelli. Current number is 58% for Mikey Sherrill, 42% for Jack Ciattarelli. That is a far bigger margin for Sherrill than had been predicted. Of course, things are not done yet, but that is with 53% of the vote in. So that is certainly garnering a lot of attention, these early numbers so far heavily in favor of Mikey Sherrill. And we have a team of reporters covering this race. Sharon Crowley is at Ciattarelli headquarters in Bridgewater, but we begin with Teresa Priolo, who is with the Mikey Sherrill campaign in East Brunswick. Teresa, what is the mood there? I have to imagine it has to be pretty ecstatic right now.
The numbers that you just talked about, Steve, is exactly the kind of news that people in this packed ballroom here in East Brunswick want to hear, want to know about. Every time Mikey's name appears on one of the TVs behind me as the cable news outlets report on what's going on, they cheer, they hoot, they holler. They're in this for her, and they do tell me they do not believe that this is going to be as close as the polls have suggested. They say she's going to win this handedly. We will see. As you mentioned, right now the race has not been called, but she is up by a couple 100,000 votes. She is here currently at the Hilton with her family. We are told that she is watching the results come in, and we expect to hear from her in a little bit. Now, as far as Sherrill is concerned, she's trying to do what has not been done in New Jersey since the 1960s, and that is keep the governor's seat in the same hands for the third consecutive term. However, the interesting thing here about New Jersey, if you want to get into the weeds as far as politics is concerned, historically we elect a different party than that is in the White House. Also, we rarely allow for 3 terms of the same party. So do with that what you will. Basically, it's going to be a toss-up, but they are monitoring the results closely. Sherrill's campaign can be really summed up in one word, and that is affordability. She says it might be the only thing that her and Jack Ciattarelli agree on. The question is what voters will drive with more. Her opinion of what should be done to fix the state or his. Back out here in East Brunswick, we can tell you again that the team is really energized by what they are seeing, by what they are hearing. And we do expect to hear from the Congresswoman herself in a little bit.
That's the latest from East Brunswick tonight. Steve, back to you.
Very well, we appreciate it. Thanks, Teresa. All right, now let's check in with Sharon Crowley to see what's happening at the Chitterelli headquarters. She's in Bridgewater, New Jersey for us tonight. What is the mood there? Obviously, these early numbers in do not appear to spell good news for Chitterelli at this point.
That's true, Steve, but they are so hopeful here. This room is packed with supporters. In fact, so many people that they had to stop letting people in. They were lined up outside the hotel here where the Chitterelli headquarters is happening. We haven't heard or seen from the candidate yet, but all the supporters and surrogates you can see behind me enjoying this evening. His campaign, he said from the beginning, was trying to make the cost of living in New Jersey more affordable, and that meant lowering property taxes, not hiking the sales tax, and trying to lower those energy costs. And those were the platforms that he ran on, and he went all over the state, up and down, from South Jersey to North Jersey, diner after diner, and he got an endorsement from President Trump. In fact, President even campaigned for him by calling into a telephone rally last night. He's been optimistic. He, of course, has run for this office before. He has wanted to be the governor of New Jersey before, and he came pretty close the last time, but was beaten by Phil Murphy. So, you know, it's an interesting race and campaign that I've been following, and, you know, he was hoping that his message of lowering property taxes would work, but this is a really blue state still. The majority of Democrats outnumber Republicans significantly. There's also a number of unaffiliated voters here that they make up a large portion of New Jersey. He'd hoped that it was going purple and he could flip it red. So we'll have to see what happens tonight. But the mood is they are still holding out hope, Steve, here at the Chitterelli headquarters.
Yep, the final numbers aren't in. The early numbers not encouraging. We shall see, though. All right, Sharon, we appreciate it. Let's get some more analysis on the main issues driving voters in New Jersey. I'm joined right now by political analyst and author of Lessons in Leadership 2.0, The Tough Stuff, Steve Adubato. Steve, thanks for being with us. What's going on in New Jersey right now? These numbers aren't in alignment with what a lot of us have been led to believe prior to the race.
Well, Steve, first, it's great to be with you on this exciting election night. And let me say this. I've been thinking about this a lot. I believe this comes down to the Donald Trump factor. There's a reason why Donald Trump did not come into New Jersey to campaign for Jack Chitterelli. Yes, he did a phone bank. Yes, he endorsed him. But the truth is, Jack Chitterelli, I believe, if Donald Trump were not president right now and we're not as unpopular as he is in New Jersey right now, 43% approval rating, Jack Chitterelli would have had a better chance tonight. Listen, this race is not over. But Donald Trump did not come here for a reason. He cancels the Gateway Tunnel. The whole SNAP benefit thing as it relates to the government shutdown, a lot of people are blaming the president and Republicans who control Congress for that. Jack Chitterelli had a noose around his neck on this, and then he gave Donald Trump an A and said he's done everything right. Bottom line is this, the president said he would lower prices. He can't do that alone. He raised expectations. Chitterelli is saddled with that now, and Mikey Sherrill ran against Donald Trump way more than she ran against Jack Chitterelli, and it appears to be helping her.
Yeah, I did want to ask you about the Gateway Tunnel project. Of course, last month, President Trump announced he was pulling funding for that $18 billion for that tunnel that runs between New York and New Jersey. That would appear to be a huge issue.
I'm watching the New York City election
in the coverage of this race. And I guess the pickle for Chitterelli is you can't take the president's endorsement, but then kind of run against him as well. You can't have it both ways.
Steve, you got it right, because he needed Donald Trump in the Republican primary, because the Republican primary is largely a MAGA right-wing Republican vote. They love Trump. He needed Trump. He didn't endorse Trump when he ran in 2016. He said negative things about him in the past, but then he turned around and said, Mr. President, I'm with you. So he needed Trump. But in a general election, you know, I just heard the report, I think the reporter, or one of our reporters just said it was a blue state. It's a more of a purple state, which is why Donald Trump came within 6 points of Vice President Harris, lost that election but close, and Jack Chitterelli 3 points the last time he ran against Murphy, Governor Murphy. It's a purple state, but if Donald Trump is very unpopular And people have a chance to send them a message that may be what's going on tonight. And that looks good for Mikey Sherrill right now.
Right, it's purple, but the conditions have to be pretty much ideal for the Republican candidate. All right, Steve Adubato, we appreciate it as always. Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, stay with us. Nick Gregory is back with a check on the forecast right after the break.
At Northwell, we can treat bumps, bruises, and breaks, fevers, fractures, and falls. We can treat minor sprains, chest pains, even smart little brains. But we can all agree, there's one thing we shouldn't have to treat. Kids are safe when a gun is locked in one. Northwell, raise health.
More. It's something people with COPD want. Dupixent makes more possible. It helps adults breathe easier, starting in as little as 2 weeks. That could mean more places visited, more dogs walked, more gardens tended, more to look forward to. It's amazing what can happen when you can do more. Dupixent is an add-on treatment for COPD that is not well controlled and with a specific marker of inflammation. It's not for sudden breathing problems. Dupixent helps block a key source of inflammation, and it's proven to help reduce flare-ups, so you can do more with less COPD. Severe allergic reactions, including skin reactions, can occur. Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing, or trouble breathing. Tell your doctor of new or worsening eye problems like eye pain or vision changes, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection or asthma. Don't change or stop other treatments without talking to your doctor. What will you do with your more? Ask a pulmonologist about Dupixent and COPD.
Engines rev, are you listening?
Fun to drive, fuel efficient, such beautiful stuff. A happy for miles, driving in a Honda Wonderland.
It's that time of year again. Happy Honda Days, where you can drive in a Honda Wonderland of your own with a great offer on a fun-to-drive new Honda. Hurry into your local Honda dealer and experience the wonder of Happy Honda Days today.
I am United States Marine Corps veteran Sam Evans. 33,000 of my fellow veterans are living on the streets we serve to protect. U.S. Vets is on a mission to prevent and end veteran homelessness. U.S. Vets provides housing and support services so veterans can live with dignity and their independence. They help give me hope. Today I have a home and serve my fellow veterans as a certified peer support specialist at U.S. Vets. Make Camel your cause to show support for veterans like me. Learn how at go.fox/US Vets.
All right, welcome back. We have some breaking news. The AP declaring Mikey Sherrill has won the race for governor in New Jersey. Those are the numbers right there. 57 to 43% over Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli. Surprising numbers. That was widely considered to be a race that was going to come down to the margins, a 3% margin of error potentially. But as you can see, the numbers did not follow suit. 57 to 43, the AP declaring Mikey Sherrill will be the next governor of New Jersey. And as Teresa alluded to earlier, she'll be the first governor since the 60s to keep the governor's office in the same party for 3 terms in a row. Much more on that in just a minute as we continue to monitor the election results tonight here on Fox 5. In the meantime, let's go to Nick for a check on the weather. And besides the wind, nothing can keep people away from the polls today, Nick.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day, right? We had beautiful blue sky, a couple of fair weather clouds, but the wind was definitely an issue. It's dying down now. It's going to lead to a cold night ahead.
But if we was gonna eat, I don't understand.
All those record lows are getting down there.
Nobody really much voted for him out here. The wacko did. Bethlehem didn't vote for him out here.
Remember, a little bit earlier than we're used to with that time change. 55 now, sky clear. Wind has lightened considerably out of the west. Humidity's dry, 29%. Storm pressure reading still going up, 30.15. But
you go to the pantry,
Sussex, upper 40s right Plains to Bridgeport, and then 30s back to the Hamptons, but still 55 in the city, back to 49 down by Belmar. It's only a west wind about 5 to 10. That will continue tonight. Tomorrow comes up out of the southwest, but look what's going to happen here in our wind gust forecast. While it's light to start first part of the morning, get into the afternoons, 35 gusting, 45 gusting, 50 to 60 miles per hour as we enter into tomorrow night. Into the early part of Thursday, it's still going to be pretty windy even on into Thursday afternoon. So the result is the National Weather Service put up that high wind watch that covers just about everybody here. It's going to run right through 8 a.m. on Thursday, starting tomorrow evening again, or late afternoon. Really, a few clouds tonight, that's really about it. And you can still see here in the wide view that this little cold front is the one that will be coming through to bring the high wind ahead of it, and milder temperatures too, and then a little trend towards cooler weather after it passes. That will be a sprinkle into parts of the area. So a few clouds tonight, again on into tomorrow, and then we'll see in the 7-day, 60s tomorrow, again an evening shower, but it turns quite windy. Still windy Thursday, 55. Clouds again Friday, showers at night, about midday Saturday. Well, you go 50s to 60s over the weekend, and showers later Sunday, but then the cold stuff around the pumpkin's still 40s good. Monday and Tuesday for high temperatures.
I guess so.
All right, we've been warned. Thank you, Nick. All right, well, again, the big news coming in right now, the AP calling the New Jersey governor's race for Democrat Mikey Sherrill. Let's go back to Teresa Friolo, who is at Sherrill headquarters.
He's not answering, but he knows.
In a margin that no one was really expecting. A runaway win at this point, it looks like, Teresa.
It really does, Steve. I mean, the polls could not have been more wrong in terms of what a wide margin this was going to be. We're waiting for the official numbers. Here in the ballroom, I can only tell you it is speeches, it is cheers, and every single time those TVs put Mikey Sherrill's name up there, the place just simply erupts. This is exactly what they wanted. They wanted a runaway success from the Congresswoman. They wanted her to win, and that appears exactly what they have gotten here. She ran on the issue that New Jersey faces most, which happens to be affordability. She talked a lot about property taxes, utility costs, health care. She talked about the Gateway Tunnel project and how she was trying to restore funding, how she would fight Washington to get that funding back. She said she was sort of in every woman, a mom of four, who really wanted to work for everyone else. And I think the thing that really resonated with a lot of people that we heard time and again yesterday as I followed her around to different events, she said, if you worry about it, I worry about it. If it keeps you up at night, it keeps me up at night. Some might just say that's political speak. It seems to have resonated with voters. We expect to hear more from the Congresswoman in just a little bit. Now that the race has officially been called, we'll bring you that when it happens, Steve. Back to you.
Yeah, whatever she did, it worked. All right, Teresa, we appreciate it. We're going to go now listen to Curtis Sliwa, who is speaking tonight at his Upper West Side headquarters.
You must have ate the whole fucking
hello!
And think we're powerless. Will understand that the people have spoken. One person, one vote.
That's his wife.
And now we will hold the mayor-elect to make sure that he serves all the people and that socialism does not replace capitalism. Law and order must be imposed to keep our city safe and secure. We want everybody to know if you're young or old, you can stay in New York, you can prosper, you can live the American dream. I swear to all of you, on behalf of my wife Nancy, myself, and everybody who made this effort possible, we will continue on. They have not stopped us. They have not silenced our voices. We will prevail in honor of our parents and grandparents. The tradition of America will grow and prevail and prosper, and it will be we the people who will be successful.
They don't know him, that's why.
I want to thank my campaign team. It has been magnificent, comprised of millennials and Gen Zers. James Perone, who's been our campaign manager.
You see he's holding, he wants to cry, I hear him.
Yeah, because he knows he's not going to win, he knows.
Some of the young men and women who are part of our social networking team, which, as you can see, has really put our message forward. I want to thank Rob Cole, who's been our senior campaign organizer. I want to thank the government of the 5 counties of New York City. The Republican leaders who stood by my side and did not bend or bow to the pressure that was coming from up high. And I hope by tonight's tally, we will see a number of our Republicans down ballot who are elected into office to be the checks and balances to the Democrats who are the majority. And I really hope that people will have heard us, and on the back of the ballot, the initiative and referendum will have voted no to the city of yes, which is going to destroy your residential quality of life. So understand this. This is a setback tonight, but this is what democracy is about. One person, one vote. Amen. They may have won this battle, but we're going to continue the fight. We will not leave. We will fight, and win at the ballot box in the future. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being there in support. Thank you to Governor George Pataki.
All right, without explicitly saying it there, that appeared to be Curtis Lewa's concession speech tonight in the race for mayor, an impassioned speech from Curtis, something we're used to seeing from him. Joining me now is Lincoln Mitchell, a political analyst from Columbia School of International and Public Affairs. So it appears he just sort of conceded there.
Yeah,
one way or another.
Concession.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think the race would have been different had he bowed to the pressure? Clearly, that's not going to work on him.
No, it's not going to work on him. You know, in these situations, there's always a kind of back-of-the-envelope math that says if the spoiler guy got out, all those votes would have gone to the other person, and something would have been different.
And actually, I'm going to interrupt you right now. The AP has just called the New York City mayor's race for Zoran Mamdani. They've gotten that word. So, okay, first
you said here, AP got it, we would move quickly.
Yeah.
But even if Sliwa isn't in the race, to suggest that all of those votes would go is a mistake. And Mamdani still may get over 50%. So Sliwa wasn't really a spoiler.
Oh my God.
For people who were not comfortable for either candidate to go in the protest vote, and of course to get a Republican base out. Remember, Republicans in this city obviously aren't going to be fans of Mamdani, but they have a lot of reasons not to like Andrew Cuomo either.
Sure. All right. So now let's get your reaction. So Zoran Mamdani called by 9:30, half an hour after the polls closed.
Well, I think we all expected this, right? The question in the big picture tonight is Mamdani going to break 50%? We still don't know that, right? That to me is a very important question here. What strikes me, and I've, just in talking to people in New York,
50, 42 to 8 are the numbers.
So it's going to be on the wire there, right?
Yeah.
We just don't know because we don't know what parts of the city are in and what are not. Talking to a lot of people over the last few days, what I heard a couple things. One was just this was a race where the attention it got because of the high profile of Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo. On the other hand, it was never a close race. It was never a close race. Mamdani was always going to win. Cuomo, some people have said to me, Cuomo ran a really bad campaign. And I've said that's not fair because it's not obvious to me Cuomo ran a campaign at all.
Right.
It was so striking. He had all this time after he lost the primary. He could have been really pounding the pavement. He could have tried to, if not reinvent himself, tell a story about some of the things people don't like about him to maybe make those less of a problem. And he just didn't really try to do that. The super PACs, I wouldn't describe them as subtle. They were pretty ham-fisted, banging away on messages that weren't going to win them any new voters.
Yeah.
So it was a really extraordinarily bad campaign by Cuomo. And Mamdani ran a great primary campaign and a good enough general election campaign. That's kind of where we are.
He was able to sort of paint Cuomo as absentee, sort of scheming with Trump to get another, right? Yeah.
Cuomo's in himself.
To do it, yeah. All right, we're going to go right now. Lincoln, we appreciate it. We're going to go right now to Morgan McKay, who is at Zoran Mamdani's headquarters.
Son of a bitch!
Where the reaction there must be off the charts.
Hey, Steve, yes, people are really excited. They just put on the TVs behind me that Zoran Mamdani won the New York City mayor's race, according to the Associated Press.
Son of a bitch!
People are cheering. People are excited, as you can see behind me. There's a lot of energy. The number to watch for right now is at 50%. Will Mamdani be able to keep that 50% vote?
Oh my God!
Because many experts say it's going to be really tough for him to get his priorities done, both up in Albany and in the city council, if he's not able to reach that 50% threshold, if he can't say that a majority of New Yorkers support his priorities. So now we're just waiting to see exactly
Mondani won the race for New York City Mayor. We're in fucking trouble. Now we all got to really stick together and represent each other and stick up for each other. We're in big trouble now.
Celebrating earlier, very excited here tonight. We're expecting Mondani to be out here hopefully soon. This is more optimistic than what we were predicting.
Oh my God.
About this race. We were saying probably around 10 p.m., but now it's almost 9:40 and the race already being called.
Yeah, you know, it's wild, and you touched on it before, but it's interesting to think of what sort of institutional resistance is he going to face when he actually becomes mayor, because of course he's been credited as being an amazing campaigner, but can he deliver on the promises he's made?
That's a big question. A lot of people are curious to see exactly how it's all going to shape up in Albany. Mondani has a lot of ideas like free buses, free childcare.
Free buses!
I'm sorry guys, I'm getting a lot of feedback in my ear here. He's getting a lot of...
He doesn't care about New
free
Yorkers.
buses, free universal childcare. Those are all things that are going to have to go through Albany. He's going to have a tough time getting his priorities done if he doesn't have that 50% of the vote. Now, Governor Kathy Hochul has already said that she is in support of something like universal child care, but she does not want to raise taxes on the wealthy, on corporations, especially as she's facing her own election year next year. But his campaign has been really trying to work on the relationships with lawmakers up in Albany and here in the city council to try to get some of these things done, like the Department of Community Safety that he wants to establish. All of that will have to go through the city council and probably up to voters.
He doesn't care about New Yorkers.
So a lot of questions to see if he can actually accomplish a lot of the things that he's promised. But as for right now, people are excited that this seems like it's going to be starting a new chapter. They say that we're going to see new change when it comes to some of these ideas. At least some of the supporters I've been talking to have said at least he's getting the ball rolling on some of these ideas.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, it is a big night, and now we know where all those voters came from and who they were voting for. Again, the AP calling this race New York City Mayor for Zoran Mamdani. The vote total right now around 50% for him. It'll be fascinating to see where that final number comes in. Let's go now to Linda Schmidt, who is at Andrew Cuomo's headquarters, which, of course, a much different situation there. Linda, I can't imagine the mood in that room right now.
Yeah, hi there, Steve. Well, you just heard all the excitement going on there where Morgan is, and you could hear the crowd, and everybody was energized. I'm going to turn around here just for a second, and I'm going to put the microphone out. What do you hear? Chatter. Just people chatting with one another. The excitement is gone. There was just a little bit of excitement here earlier tonight. And as I said to you, and we've been doing these live shots throughout the night tonight. From the moment that we got here at about 6:45, we came into this room, and I had that same feeling. The room had the same feeling as it did during the primary when Cuomo lost by 13 points to Mamdani back in June. That the only people that were here in the ballroom and in the room at that time, lots of reporters, lots of journalists, lots of cameras, but not lots of supporters. And his campaign team was not prevalent. They were not front and center, and they were not front and center here tonight. So I had that same, the room had the same feel that it did to me back in June. And this is a generational race. This is somebody, Andrew Cuomo is a political expert. He is part of the political elite. His entire adult life has been in politics. And Steve, as your guest was just talking about, he said that it seemed to him that Cuomo didn't even really have a campaign, that he didn't even try to campaign. And that's what so many experts have been telling us since the primary, because he came out of that primary saying that he learned a lesson and that he was going to kind of do what Mamdani was doing, boots on the ground, getting out there, talking to New Yorkers, meeting them where they are, on the streets of New York, like Mamdani was doing. That's what he needed to do to compete with him. He admitted that back in June after he lost the primary. But then he never really changed his campaign strategy or his campaign style. And
well, don't yell at me when I wear all USA stuff.
Said that it seemed like
free buses.
Nobody pays the fare now.
I'm not paying either. I'm going to jump over the turnstile now.
I'm not bailing you out.
Won't have to. I'll be like the mayor says free buses. I'm gonna pay anymore.
They're in trouble when he's going to be coming out here and taking the stage? We don't know, because I've been trying to talk with his people since 4 o'clock this afternoon, emailing, texting, calling them, trying to find out what has he been doing all day. Did he campaign today? When is he going to be arriving here? No one has responded to us. That was another major red flag, that they were not feeling good and confident about this campaign, despite the fact that we had 2 million voters and more, that number could go up, turning out for this election, which they felt confident about earlier today.
They were so hopeful about what that meant, right? That maybe those were people coming out for Cuomo. That turned out not to be the case. This is definitely a devastating loss for him after also losing the primary as well and having to run as an independent. All right, we're going to go back to Morgan Mackay in Brooklyn. She is at Zoran Mamdani's headquarters.
I'm trying to get a picture. I'm going to get responses. They're on my side.
Is ecstatic. And you know, Morgan, there was a soundbite we played in our cold opens that we produced before the shows that really stuck in my head. It was a young female voter, and she said she was going for integrity over experience. And that's apparently a decision lots of other people made as well, with Mamdani playing the role of integrity in their minds today.
Man, this fuck's got his head up there. Where you going?
I think Andrew Cuomo really ran on his experience.
Where's he going?
It's sort of a double-edged sword.
What they said?
While his experience,
I don't know. I have no idea.
a lot of background on some really important issues when it comes to running the state and the city. It also came as a referendum on some of his past actions that led him to resign in 2021. There was a lot of criticism in the primary and in the general election that he didn't quite take some of the things seriously when it comes to some of the actions that he had during his time as governor. I'm sorry, guys, it's been really bad feedback from you guys here. But there's a lot of energy here tonight, and Mamdani, at the end of the day, ran a very good campaign, according to many experts. He was out there. He was meeting with voters almost every single day. He was talking with people. He ran a real grassroots campaign. And one of the big criticisms against Mamdani is that he doesn't have a lot of experience. He's been a state assemblyman. He was elected in 2020. But besides that, he doesn't have a big resume. But some voters saying that's what's needed right now in the Democratic Party. They're saying they've got this same old leadership, that's this old guard in New York City that has led the city for the past few generations. And it's only ended up with a city that's less affordable. It's just not a place where people want to raise their families just because of how expensive it's gotten. And I think affordability was the key issue in this race. And Mamdani seized upon that definitely in his messaging. He made it simple for voters to understand what he was talking about. Definitely the videos that he made definitely caught people's eyes. But even though he doesn't have experience, that doesn't seem like that mattered to some voters.
No, yeah, you know, it's interesting, Morgan, because it does seem like voters all see the problems as being the same. They just sort of differ on the solution. So here in New York, you get maybe a different outcome than you would in a red state, per se. But voters were definitely, clearly ready for a change. And I think, as you so astutely pointed out, even though he is young and inexperienced, at this point, voters were willing to take a chance on it. You know, I was just saying, you know, about the idea, I think a lot of voters basically view the problems the same, but they will vote for different candidates depending on what part of the world they're in. Here in New York, clearly voters were willing to vote for a Democrat with thin experience, only 34 years old, because they're so fed up with the status quo.
Exactly, and you're seeing that with some of the even frustration around the lack of endorsements when it came to Mamdani. You saw House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries give a really lukewarm endorsement for Mamdani, sort of almost shrugging his shoulders and saying, if I have to endorse a Democratic candidate, it's Zoran Mamdani, and here I'm endorsing him. You had Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who did not weigh in on one of the most consequential races in this nation that's happening in his own backyard. He refused to say who he voted for. He said he voted but didn't want to say who, and he didn't want to weigh in on any of the candidates. He called on Cuomo to resign in 2021, so maybe he didn't want to go ahead and endorse him. While at the same time, you have Mamdani, who's a Democratic socialist, and many Democrats, especially higher up in Congress, us are very concerned about this Democratic socialism wing and are afraid that it's going to hurt their chances in the midterms, and so they're trying to distance themselves. You're seeing it a little bit. Jeffries was just asked the other day if he thinks that Mamdani is the future of the Democratic Party, and he said no, and tried to focus the attention back on House Democrats. But at the same time, I think you're seeing this frustration. But at the same time, if Mamdani doesn't deliver on some of these promises, if he does fall flat on his face, they also don't really want to be tied to that. So a lot of eyes across the world are going to be really watching to see if Mamdani can deliver some of the things that he's promised.
Yeah, indeed. It's definitely a threat to the Democratic status quo, and you can see that, as you mentioned, in the response from Chuck Schumer, who wouldn't even say who he voted for. Fascinating stuff. More to come, of course, when Zoran Mamdani gives his victory speech. In the meantime, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos lung cancer, choose the right law firm by asking, what are your highest verdicts? What experience do you have? How many lawyers are on staff? How many clients have you represented? Speak to Whites and Luxembourg at 917 Lawyers to get unmatched answers. It's the biggest financial decision of your life. Call 917 Lawyers or visit 917lawyers.com.
This is my gorgeous Spencer panel bed.
And this is the matching dresser and mirror and nightstand. They're great on their own, but so much better together.
Plus, when you bundle the bedroom set, you save almost $200. Oh my God!
Hey guys, so whenever I need more space in my wardrobe, I sell everything I don't wear anymore on Vinted. It's an app for secondhand fashion. I can get some extra cash by giving my clothes a second life. Win-win. And best of all, there are no selling fees, so everything you make is yours. Selling on Vinted is easy. You just take a picture of the item you want to sell and upload it. And since you set the price, you've got a better chance to earn back what you want from it. So what are you waiting for? Download the Vinted app today. If you don't wear it, sell it.
I finally admitted that I have memory and thinking issues. My doctor said it was early Alzheimer's disease. With getting the early diagnosis and treatment, I'm doing all I can. And now, with Kisunla, I see a glimmer of hope.
Here comes the sun. Kisunla is an anti-amyloid treatment for early symptomatic Alzheimer's disease, proven to slow the progression of the disease. Kisunla can cause amyloid-related imaging abnormalities, or ARIA, which is temporary bleeding and or swelling in the brain. Your doctor may test for a gene that raises its risk. ARIA doesn't usually cause symptoms, but can be serious and fatal. Symptoms may include headache, confusion, dizziness, vision changes, nausea, difficulty walking, or seizures. Tell your doctor if you take medications to reduce blood clots. Do not take if you have a known allergy to Kisunla or any of its ingredients. Serious infusion-related and allergic reactions can occur. These are not all of the possible side effects. Call your doctor right away if you experience any side effects.
I'm doing all I can for my Alzheimer's, and that gives me hope.
Visit Kisunla.com to learn about evaluation and testing to see if Kisunla may be right for you.
Our election night coverage continues with more now. The New York City race for Mayor Zoran Mamdani declared the winner by the AP SC Cup. The host of Battleground NYC, the Fight for Your Vote, rejoins me now to break down exactly what we are seeing. Such a thrill to be with you now that we finally know the result of this election. Yeah. So now we know who all those extra voters were voting for. It wasn't some hidden Cuomo group, people thinking things over at the last minute. They were there for Mamdani. 50 to 42 are the numbers right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at this was a great campaign that Mamdani ran, and there's going to be a lot of lessons to take from this. And one is for Andrew Cuomo, who I think didn't want to be doing this. He had presidential ambitions. He, I think, decided to do this as sort of a restoration, a political comeback effort after those scandals and ending, his job as governor. And he didn't campaign. He didn't campaign like he wanted it. He thought his name ID and the dynasty would be enough to turn out voters. And Zoran Mamdani benefited from having no name ID because he knew, I've got to go out and actually introduce myself to every single New York voter. I've got to use every lever I can, every mechanism, go to every neighborhood. he did all the work.
Yeah.
Andrew Cuomo didn't, and you're seeing this in the results.
You know, he had nothing to lose. And what I was struck by was that Mamdani was on offense till the very end. He's doing events at midnight. He's doing Tai Chi with old people. He's going to this neighborhood. He didn't take any votes for granted. He was going after all of them to the very end.
And then some. Then, toward the end, I think they were feeling pretty good. They started going after voters that, like, Cuomo won in the primary.
Right.
And into places that maybe weren't natural Mamdani territory. That's what you got to do. And people will be studying this Mamdani campaign, both for its social media prowess, for its ground game, its grassroots, just old school knocking on doors that people seem to have forgot is like a thing you should do.
Yeah. We got a door knock at our apartment here on the Upper East Side. I've never had that ever in my life living there.
He took nothing for granted, and he did it all, interestingly, really without the help of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
He didn't get those endorsements sometime at all, and in other cases, not to the very, very end.
Jeffries did it begrudgingly for himself, not for Mamdani.
Right.
Schumer wouldn't even admit who he voted for.
And I think they look a little silly now,
Yeah.
because it just would have been courageous to say either, of course I'm endorsing the Democratic nominee, or we're staying out of this completely, this is not our business.
Is that a Democrat or Republican thing? I don't see Republicans fearful of embracing their candidate, whatever their positions are, the same way Democrats seem to sometimes get skittish about their own candidates.
It is. It's lacking that courage, and it looks so political. What Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer did, and I understand their calculus. They have a different calculus than some other Democrats. But what they did in hedging and waiting and trying, it just didn't make any sense. And Zohran Mamdani is one of the only bright spots in the Democratic Party. You don't have to run as Zohran Mamdani everywhere, but it would make a lot of sense for you to say, this guy's a star. And just like we love AOC for what she is, and Bernie for what he is, and our moderates for what they are, we are, of course we're behind this guy. He's going to be the right guy for New York City at the right time. If you're a Democrat, a leader, that's what I think your message should be.
Yeah, we've got 20 seconds left in this segment here. So you saw Virginia went Democrat, New Jersey went Democrat. The Democrat won in the race for mayor. Big picture, how's this being responded to at the White House right now?
Not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's a big, big night for Democrats. It doesn't mean everything, right? This isn't predictive about the midterms. But it's a big night. They'll have a lot of motivation and momentum, and I'm just wondering if this is going to impact the shutdown and Washington politics.
Right, that changes the perspective there. All right, SE Cup, always great talking to you. We appreciate it. We're going to go to Nick now for a look at the weather, and obviously lots of people were out voting today. Nick, really a pretty beautiful early November day.
Yeah, it was beautiful blue sky, a couple of fair weather clouds, just a little coolness to the air because of the wind that was strong and gusty much of the day, which is backed off tonight. As you see, it's very light out of the west. It's either calm or it's about 5 to 10 miles an hour. The wind gusts have disappeared for now, but the wind gusts are going to come back tomorrow in a big way as we hit the late morning, gusting 20, 25, and by the afternoon, 25, gusting 45 to 50, even maybe up to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. That is going to be a problem, and even the Thursday morning gusts will be 20 to 35 plus miles per hour to at least the early part of the afternoon before subsiding. So the result is a high wind watch is up for the entire area except south of New York City. This is going to go from late tomorrow to about 8 o'clock Thursday morning. So make that again into your plans for the strong wind. Temperatures are dropping quick though. 35 Poughkeepsie now, 36 North Jersey. 42 back up in the Hamptons. That's up a couple of degrees in the last hour. Low 50s, though, still in the city. Down to Newark, upper 40s at the Jersey Shore. Few clouds out there tonight. Few more clouds will be around at times tomorrow as we wait for this system to move on through. That little cold front comes by as we head into the evening and brings a couple of showers with it. Meantime, 50s for the Pacific Northwest today. 60s, LA, San Francisco, to 90s in Phoenix. And we're going to see 60s tomorrow because look to the west. Again, it's in the 60s today for Cincinnati, Chicago, back to Des Moines, 70s heading down to the Gulf Coast, and 80s as you head towards Florida. All right, tonight going down to, again, the 30s in the suburbs, 46 in the city. Sun and clouds tomorrow, windy day, showers in the evening, windy Thursday, 50s, as they also appear again on Friday. Some showers by Friday night and about midday Saturday, still 60s this weekend, but then it's windy and much cooler as we head into Monday and Tuesday, only in the mid-upper 40s. Steve?
Well, all right, thanks, Nick. That does it for tonight's special election edition of the Fox 5 News at 9. Mamdani wins it in New York City. Mikey Sherrill wins the race for governor in New Jersey. Keep it right here for extended coverage on the 10 o'clock news, which comes your way in just 2 minutes.
Hannity.
Officials, Republicans defeated at a massive level. Nobody's looking at it, but the GOP has to figure out how to turn out races without Donald Trump on the ballot.
I think that's well said. Robert, let's get your take. Would you ever imagine Zoran Mamdani winning with his radical positions in New York City?
A simple answer to that is yes. It's New York City. But I agree with Matt.
That's true.
Shutdown is everything. I mean, you know, when you have
Robert, let me stop you. Are you talking about, like, when you say shutdown, are you specifically really referring to Virginia, considering in Northern Virginia so many people were impacted by this government shutdown? And why didn't they blame Schumer? Because I would argue he shut it down.
Well, absolutely. But here's the thing. You've got so many people who depend on the government for either aid or a paycheck. And when that is stopped, they're going to blame the party in power. And when Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the President, they don't understand all the details of filibuster. I mean, they understand the Republicans are control, and that check's in jeopardy. And so when that check is in jeopardy, when that aid is in jeopardy, whether it's actually in jeopardy or they just perceive it's in jeopardy, they're going to make their pocketbook, even if they're ideologically feel a different way. That's what they were talking about earlier. Kellyanne said that all these numbers said they were going to vote one way based on how they felt about issues like crime, but they voted the other way. I think people are voting their pocketbooks, and Trump was right. The shutdown needed to end, and filibuster, whatever it took. Nuclear option, it's got to stop.
Well, I hope for the sake of people, especially if they're going to lose SNAP benefits, I don't want to come on the air and have to beg people to go to the local food bank, and that may be next. Thank you both. That's all the time we have left this evening. Please stay with the Fox News channel for continuing coverage of tonight's election results. Brett and Martha, they take it from here. You're in great hands. Let not your heart be troubled. See you tomorrow night.
What a loser.
It is election night in America, and results are in for several closely watched races around the country. Welcome to Fox News Democracy 25 special coverage. I'm Brett Baer, live from Fox News election headquarters in New York.
And I'm Martha McCown. 3 big races shaping the map tonight. In New York, Fox News projects Zoran Mamdani will become the city's first Democratic Socialist mayor, beating out Republican Curtis Sliwa and independent Andrew Cuomo.
In neighboring New Jersey, the Fox News decision desk projects that Democrat Mikey Sherrill will become the state's next governor there.
And meanwhile, Fox News also projects Democrat Abigail Spanberger will win the Virginia governor's race, flipping that seat to become the Commonwealth's first female governor.
We've got Fox team coverage tonight. Rich Edson in Virginia, Brian Yennis in New Jersey, and Alexis McAdams in New York.
Rick Hume is standing by, plus our panel right here to break it all down. Dana Perino, Shannon Bream, Harold Ford Jr., and Charlie Hurt.
Take a live look now as supporters are gathered at campaign headquarters for New York's mayoral candidates. And that is where we start with Alexis McAdams at the Mamdani HQ in Brooklyn. It's got to be getting pretty fired up there.
Brett, that's right. The music is loud. The people are here. And it's kind of like, you know, when people say the party's not going to start till later. Don't show up until later on. Well, they showed up here right after the polls closed because for these supporters of Zoran Mamdani, it wasn't a question of whether he was going to win or not in New York City. It was how much he was going to win by. So they have the momentum, and it comes down to affordability. So sometimes politics can be difficult and complicated to explain to people. Mamdani, the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist, tried to make it simple, okay? He said, I'm going to give you a free bus. I'm going to freeze your rent. I'm going to give a government-owned grocery store here in New York City. And people thought, sounds like a great idea. I'm going to vote for that guy because they reject the Democrat establishment, according to the voters I talked to. The younger, more liberal voters here in New York City say they don't care who Chuck Schumer endorses. They don't care who Hakeem Jeffries backs. They care who's for the people of New York City and the people of the country. And whether people like him or not, he has a lot of support here. And people are excited for one time that I've seen talking to some of these voters about the future of the Democratic Party. So what's going to happen in New York City tomorrow when he wakes up and heads to City Hall and will be the next mayor here in the Big Apple, we'll have to see. But Andrew Cuomo thought he could close the gap, but looks like he didn't have it. Brett?
Alexis, thank you.
Bill Hemmer at the board breaking down the results tonight. Bill, as all of this sort of settles in, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And you think about the last 7 days of this campaign, how they were trying to drive Curtis Sliwa's numbers down. There was an active campaign here in New York City, and it was in your face just about every day. On top of that, they tried to get each other to drop out, right, during the debate season of 3 weeks ago. The effort to draw Sliwa voters away from him kind of worked, and I'm going to show you why, okay? He's down to single digits. Wasn't enough, all right? Cuomo's at 41.5. Come down here to Staten Island, all right? This is where Sliwa is the strongest. He checked in at 21% of the vote, which is...
How is he the strongest in Staten Island? He did crap.
4 years ago. That really stands out. 4 years ago, Sliwa was at 70%. And that one borough of Staten Island, least populated of 5, I grant you that, about 500,000 people live there. But if the idea was to get those voters, all 69,924 of them, and find a way to support Andrew Cuomo, they found some success in doing that, but it was not enough to catch Mamdani, who got over 50% of that vote, okay? Pop on out here to the big map. I'll show you where it stands right now. A little bit of vote still out there, but anytime you're over 50%, it's really hard, right? I mean, the math will tell you it just doesn't add up. In the three-way race, that makes it even more difficult. So we're starting to see that breakdown here in New York. I want to show you a few things. This is Brooklyn, okay? Brooklyn is really where Mamdani had most of his strength. And we're looking at these precincts, guys, right? Some of these precincts are half a block. Sometimes they're just a city street. That's all right? And some of these precincts are behind Mamdani at greater than 95%. Right up here in Williamsburg, okay? Heavy Mamdani territory. In the Bushwick, the neighborhood of Bed-Stuy, Park Slope in Brooklyn, and then right here in Borough Park, all right? He hits a wall. In Borough Park, it's Hasidic Jews. And they went for Cuomo overwhelmingly, 88, 89, 90%. But it wasn't in the end enough to overtake Mamdani and the lead that he had spotted himself. I'll point out two more things here quickly, guys. In the governor's race in New Jersey, all the polling said this thing was going to be really close. I tell you right now, with more than 80% of the vote in, Mikey Sherrill, she got a 13-point lead. I can't recall off the top of my head how many polls were out there that had her with a 13-point lead. But that, again, is the number right now in New Jersey. Virginia, real quick before I kick it back to you, we called this some time ago, Abigail Spanberger. I think you can make the case, too, that, she outperformed a lot of the polls that we had seen for weeks leading up this campaign. But right now, Democrats 3-0 on the night, guys. Back to you.
Yeah, big wins. We'll come back. Okay, this year Fox News is debuting a new way to understand tonight's election results. The Fox News voter poll. It's the data that covers really thousands of voters who cast ballots early on election day, by mail, and in person. Sandra Smith has been crunching those numbers. Hey, Sandra.
And some of the key groups that we're seeing behind the vote really telling the story here in New York City. When you break it down by age of the voter, the youth vote overwhelmingly went for Mamdani in this race. 75% of their support went to him. And when you break this down into gender, that number gets even bigger. The female youth vote, women under the age of 30, you break that down, that number goes over 80% support for Mamdani in this race. Other key findings that we're finding in the New York City mayoral race, what qualities were voters looking for in their candidate? This was a change election. 27% said they wanted to bring change to the city. And look at that. They supported Mamdani. 72% of their vote went to him. Couple other things I want to highlight here. Do you identify as a Democratic Socialist? Look at this number. This is 1 out of every 4 New Yorkers who cast their ballot identified as a Democrat Socialist. Of course, you click on this and you'll see their support went to Mamdani in this race. 81% of their support there. Couple other things I want to highlight here. Mamdani versus Cuomo. This was basically a question that we put to voters when they cast their ballot, that if Sliwa was not in the race, and this was just a hypothetical two-way matchup, Mamdani versus Cuomo, that Martha, it gets close, but Mamdani still got the edge in that hypothetical matchup. Just a couple of things that we're taking away from all of that tonight.
All right, Sandra, thank you.
So let's bring in our panel, Dana Perino, Shannon Bream, Harold Ford Jr., and Charlie Hurt. Great to have all of you with us as we look at these results and very significant wins for Democrats tonight, Dana.
So my partner in crime over there, Bill Hemmer, mentioned the polling, and I think that's going to be one of the threads that people are going to want to pull after this, because the polling did suggest much tighter races. That is not what happened. But you know what was undefeated, and I'm sure Britt Hume will talk about this, and that is the betting markets. And so I think that the whole polling industry has to take a look and say, with these phones, with the new ways to do it, what do we don't have a handle on? I do think that to the extent that there was any story at all is a little bit of a surprise. These are blue states. There shouldn't have been much suspense, but I think that because the Democrats are in such disarray, aside from the Democratic Socialists who appear to be going very strong, the Democrats are going to have a very difficult time. And I know my friend Harold is going to try to say that Zohran Mamdani, not Democrat,
He's going to start by saying thanks, Fred.
You're on the table, but you already said that to me earlier today. But I think it's going to be very difficult from a messaging standpoint. All of the energy is behind Zohran Mamdani. And I remember something that George Will said. Every 20 years or so, people need a controlled experiment in socialism to remind them of why they need adults in charge. And unfortunately, for the city that is not of my birth, but it's certainly the one that I adopted and that I love this place. I do hope for the best. I wish him the best, and hope that he can love it as much as we do.
But Harold, you know, a lot of people in New York thought Bill de Blasio was that, and that it didn't work, and that this was not going to happen again. And here they are. And you wonder what this means for this city and what it means for your party.
Well, it is good to be back around the table to be able to do this coverage. I'd say a couple of things. The last two mayors we've had in this city, Bill de Blasio and Eric Adams, many people thought that they were national figures, and they embraced that national figuredom that was put on them. Bill de Blasio ran for president. His campaign was roundly rebuffed. Eric Adams was on a trajectory and ran into some hurdles and opposition, some of it self-inflicted. But as he leaves office tonight, crime is coming down, and New York remains a place where people want to invest.
New York is
we come to Mr. Mamdani. I'm surprised by some of the numbers also. I'm a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat socialist. Tonight will be interesting to hear his speech. Is it unifying? Does he reach out to Jessica Tisch? Does he try to allay some of the concerns? Yes, Jessica Tisch, who's our police commissioner, who has shepherded this crime reduction, violent crime reduction in our city, and made, I live in this city and vote in this city, my kids go to school in this city, and make it easier for kids to take the subway, for that matter, all New Yorkers to take the subway. Two, this was a good night for Dems. If Dems had lost one of these states, we'd be saying this is a terrible night. Dems won by 14 points in both Virginia and Virginia and New Jersey. And we won the Supreme Court races in Pennsylvania, and we retained the Public Service Commission seats in Georgia. Now, some will say we held serve. You got to hold serve to win. This is tomorrow as we get ready for the political day, Mr. Trump and Republicans will have some questions to answer. The shutdown will still be on people's minds. I'd be curious to know, if we look at some of the polling, did the shutdown play in New Jersey and Virginia in these last week or two, as we talked about SNAP benefits and so forth? I don't know the answer to that. And two, there's a big conversation that's going to take place at the Supreme Court tomorrow about the legality of the tariffs. So the world goes on tomorrow. But as we sit here tonight, Democrats had a good night, and where I agree with Dana, we've got to decide if Mr. Mamdani is going to be the face of our party. I say Richard de Blasio and Adam because everyone thought they could be the leaders, but I argue the San Francisco mayor, Daniel Lurie, a Democrat who beat a Democrat in the primary, who wanted to face down crime and make San Francisco more attractive. The mayor of Philadelphia, who beat a Democrat, a black woman, who's addressing crime in a very different way. So there are mayors around the country who had to deal with realities. I wish Mr. Mamdani the best, and I hope that the questions that people have about anti-Semitism and his lack of commitment to our police, I hope he's able to allay some of those concerns starting this evening.
President Trump is weighing in. He just posted on Truth Social, quote, Trump wasn't on the ballot and shut down were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight. Charlie Hurt.
That's a very Trumpian message, and it's true. I would say that it certainly was not a bad night for Democrats. But I would temper it a little bit. You know, if we sat back 6 months ago and sort of predicted the outcome of all of these races, we probably would have done a better job of getting it all right than you would by reading the polls in the last couple of weeks. Dana raised a great point, though, about the betting markets. It's like, who is it that's getting in late I mean, they nail these things. And even if the betting markets are wrong the day before the election, by the time, polls close, they are like within a tenth of a point. It does kind of, I'm suspicious enough, it makes me wonder whether or not it's not campaign people doing it. But look, if you go back 40 years,
flag.
not only are Virginia and New Jersey both solidly blue states now, if you go back, their reputation for voters rejecting whatever party won the White House in the previous year is almost without fail. There have been 2 examples, one in each state over the past 4 years, where they haven't done that. So this is not to be unexpected. I don't think that it's not a bad night for Democrats, but I don't know that you can really spike the ball here. Certainly Democrats won the expectations game because of the last couple of weeks, but they still have monumental problems. Not only do you have a communist in New York City,
thank you,
how he decides to govern, but you also have the J. Jones in Virginia that Republicans are going to be able to run against both of these people all across the country.
Shannon, one of the things that President Trump has gotten a lot of traction on is the issue of crime, removing illegal migrants who are here who have committed crimes. And Mamdani, has said some very dark things about the New York City police. We all remember Bill de Blasio having the police en masse turn their backs to him at a New York City police officer's funeral. So that's one of the things that I think we're going to really be watching is this relationship with the police, because 9% are going to leave the city. It's going to be a huge percentage of police officers we know as well.
Yeah, think about what he said about not working with the NYPD, working with ICE, not working together. And he said essentially wants to double down on the sanctuary city laws that you have here in New York City. And so for a lot of people who live and work and spend their money here or decide to take it and go somewhere else, that's been a huge issue for him. And also all of these promises that you can always make the promises during the campaigns. We know that's what all candidates do. There are some folks, like very controversial folks like Linda Sarsour, who say, I'm going to be staying here and watching. You can't just go in there and do whatever the hell you want. We're going to be enforcing from the outside to make sure that you line up with the progressive things that you promised and that we put you there to do. So it'll be interesting to see how he governs.
Some of those interviews, he was walking back a couple of the things already as of this morning. Listen, we'll take you to New Jersey for a closer look at the governor's race there. We're going to take a short break here as our Fox News election coverage continues.
Hello to needle-free Neffy, the only epinephrine nasal spray for emergency treatment of allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis, from food, insects, medicines, and other allergy triggers. Use it for signs of allergic reaction. Ask your doctor how to use Neffy. Certain medical conditions may worsen. Tell your doctor about nasal, heart, or other medical conditions. High blood pressure, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, and all medications. Side effects include nasal discomfort, headache, runny nose, shakiness, and throat irritation. Ask your prescriber about needle-free Neffy or learn more at Neffy.com.
If you contracted COVID and you're experiencing unexplained health symptoms, they may be related to the virus or the advice provided to safeguard us. Here's Dr. Peter McCullough, medical specialist and world-leading authority on pandemic illnesses.
Countless people and possibly you still suffer with unexplained symptoms they didn't have before the pandemic. Studies show it may be the COVID spike protein left inside you that can harm your brain and body for years. If you experience fatigue, sleep problems, shortness of breath, headaches, lightheadedness, and more, you should consider Ultimate Spike Detox. This clinical-grade, natural detoxifier may actually break down the dangerous spike protein hiding inside you, and for the first time, it's available outside of clinical settings. Ultimate Spike Detox is how you get serious about getting back to good health.
Order online in minutes and save 15%. Visit tryspikedetox.com/Fox15, promo code Fox15. At tryspikedetox.com/Fox15.
In an exclusive interview from the Turning Point USA headquarters,
I'm not afraid. Charlie wasn't afraid either.
Erica Kirk speaks up to Jesse Waters in her first sit-down, Wednesday on Fox News Channel.
I do a lot of Zooms.
And so I really have to have the internet working when I'm working from home. My husband works from home, so we needed something that was going to work consistently. First, we signed up for the internet, and then from there, we went to the mobile. So it's like, it's easy. It's all in one place. The bundle with Spectrum One saves us at least $100 a month. The plan was inexpensive, and it stayed inexpensive, so that's really what sold us.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
If you're on Medicare, remember, the annual enrollment period is here. The time to choose your coverage ends December 7th. So call United Healthcare and get coverage you can count on with our wide range of plans, including an AARP Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare. It can combine your hospital and doctor coverage with prescription drug coverage and more, all in one simple plan for a $0 or low monthly premium. You'll have $0 annual physical exams, lab tests, and preventive care. Plus, get the extra benefits you want with $0 copays on preventive dental, a $0 eye exam, and $0 copays on hundreds of prescriptions with a Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan. Now's the time to learn more about America's most chosen Medicare Advantage brand for nearly 2 decades. Connect with United Healthcare and get support every step of the way. Call or go online today.
Democrat Mikey Sherrill will become the 57th governor of the state of New Jersey after defeating Republican challenger Jack Ciattarelli. Let's bring in Brian Yedis. He is live at Ciattarelli headquarters in Bridgewater, New Jersey tonight, where no doubt they are disappointed. Brian.
Yeah, Martha, no doubt they are, but history was made tonight here in New Jersey. Democrat Mikey Sherrill becomes the first female Democrat to become governor of New Jersey and just the second female governor of the Garden State. And no doubt that in her victory speech tonight, she made sure to make clear that this was all about the president. The president says he was not on the ballot, but, Mikey Sherrill made this race a referendum on the president. In her victory speech, she said that governors never mattered more than today, and she said, as the president is cutting SNAP and ripping away health care benefits and terminating things like funding for the Gateway Tunnel Project, which was a rail project here in New Jersey to make commuter life a lot better going into New York City. These are the things that she brought up in her victory speech, all the way to the end, making this a referendum on President Trump. For Jack Ciattarelli, I just spoke to their campaign, and they say ultimately they feel like the race was lost here on a couple of things, but they point to one ad made by Sherrill on the sales tax. There was an ad out there that said that Ciattarelli would raise the sales tax. That was a really difficult thing for them to overcome. It wasn't true, but they find that to be difficult, and so I'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, terrible, and that's something that's not true. It turns out to be a big problem for you. So,
Bill Emmers over at the Billboard, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Kind of separated.
Yeah, just bouncing around a little bit. I mean, where were we 12 months ago? Where were we 4 years ago? We're looking at some of these counties, guys, that flipped, and they flipped, and they flipped again. And really, that's what I'm seeing, okay? I mean, I'll just put your attention down here in southern New Jersey. We did this exercise about 3 hours ago. We'll do it again right now, and here in northern New Jersey as well. Here's your current results. 85% of races called. Sherrill leads by 13 points. Let me go ahead and remove that and show you, this is Jack Ciattarelli's election 4 years ago against Phil Murphy. Phil Murphy, the Democrat. This is when it shocked everybody, right? Everybody was watching Virginia and Glenn Youngkin take on Terry McAuliffe. Once that race was over, we put our eyes on New Jersey, and we were stunned to see that this race was as close as it was, okay? So Murphy was the eventual winner 4 years ago. Let me just put the pencil back up there. You see the pattern, guys? All right, that's 4 years ago, and this is now. And I was just looking at it, like, the presidential results are very similar, too. If you pull up New Jersey, from where you are right now, sorry, guys, let me rearrange that bad boy, all right? I think that was the first bad punch we had all night, okay? I mean, this is what Donald Trump did against Kamala Harris, right? He flipped those counties in the south, and he flipped those counties in the north, right? Similar pattern, okay? Then you come back to the governor's race this year, and, it just seems to me like these voters that I'm talking about here, they're up for grabs. And they made that pretty well known throughout the night tonight in New Jersey. Back on over there.
All right, Bill. Thank you.
Bring in Britt Hume with his thoughts as we sort of digest where we are tonight. Britt, what's the big takeaway for you when you look at these three races?
Well, I don't think you ever need to look very far in our current politics without wondering what the effect of Donald Trump was and is. I was struck by what was coming out of Mikey Sherrill's campaign tonight, that he was a big factor in the race as far as she was concerned, and resistance to him was that. There was a number that was cited earlier from our polling data that showed that something like 70% of the voters on our side that were acting to resist Donald Trump. So I think we have to keep that in mind as we look at all these results. And the other side of that is that Trump can turn out voters, but they turn out for him. And everything I think we've seen tonight suggests that when he's not on the ballot, even if he's trying to influence the ballots, if he's not on there himself, his voters are much less interested than they might otherwise be. So that as the Republican Party moves forward here under his leadership, they have to start thinking about what it's going to be like when he's gone. And what it's going to be like in next year when we have a midterm election in which he will not be on the ballot, but the fortunes of his administration very much will be. So I think that's a factor coming out tonight that we need to keep an eye on.
Ray, we were very sad that you weren't up here to give us the betting markets as we progressed tonight, because they were pretty accurate.
You know why I did that back then was in 2016 when I was talking about the betting markets, was that I was sitting way down at the far end of the desk. And by the time you all ever got to me, everything that could be said had been said. So I was just going to the betting markets just to have something to say. And as it turned out that night, they told the tale.
That's right, that's right. Well, I wanted to ask you about the economy. And, there is this thought by Treasury Secretary Bessent, others, that this golden time is coming, that it's all going to come to fruition in the first or second quarter of 26. But right now, there is a feeling dichotomy between big companies and Wall Street and what families at home may be feeling. And you're starting to see that in the polls on the economy upside down on inflation and on the economy overall.
I agree, Brad, and I think that we have to keep an eye on the effect of AI on all of this. And these staggering investments are being made in AI. The technology seems to be advancing by leaps and bounds. But the one thing I think we can all agree on is that it is going to kill a lot of jobs. Now, it may in the long run create a lot of new jobs, as technology has a history of doing. But in the near term, a lot of people are going to be hurt by it. A lot of people will be helped too, and they'll be on the high end of things, and that'll all be nice. But there are going to be a lot of people who are not on the high end of things who are going to be feeling that. And that will have an effect in our politics going forward, to be sure, particularly in the near term.
All right. Are we going? I think we're going to a tease here, right, guys?
Britt, thank you as always.
Thank you very much. We'll be back to you in just a bit.
You are looking live at Zoran Mamdani HQ in Brooklyn, where we are expecting to see the mayor-elect to speak soon. We'll bring you that live when it happens. Stick around here on Fox News Election Coverage 25.
Now that I've reevaluated my benefits and savings with Voya, I'm feeling great. How's your retirement plan going? Oh, I've been ignoring it and hoping for the best.